Great. Hi everyone, I am Saloni Surti, the editor for Social Samosa and Media Samosa, and it gives me great pleasure to invite you all, to welcome you all to the first edition of Marketing Camp by Social Samosa. Now, before we start with the exciting sessions for today, I'd quickly like to give you guys, a context about what Marketing Camp is, right? So a lot has been changing in the advertising and marketing industry globally. The new technologies coming in, newer trends are coming in. Consumers themselves have changed a lot, right? With things changing every single day, Marketing Camp is our effort to sort of understand how it impacts on a daily level, for a person working in an agency or in a brand, right? What does it mean? What are the in-depth insights seen that create challenges or even opportunities? Right. So Marketing Camp is our effort to bring out in great detail about marketing trends seen in a given sector. And for our inaugural edition, we've picked up the BFSI marketing as a theme. Why BFSI? First of all, obviously, we just concluded the JFM quarter, so that makes it very important. Secondly, a lot has been happening in the BFSI space in India, right? Fintech is booming, crypto is booming. Legacy brands and traditional brands have been adding digital to the purchase funnel, and consumers themselves have changed a lot, right? The proverbial Gen Z and millennials are way more invested, no pun intended, but yeah, they are way more invested into savings and finance than they used to be before, and they look at things pretty differently. A lot has been, they have everything on their fingertips quite literally, and in line with that, we have designed a few sessions with industry experts on board. Right. So without taking any more of your time, I'd like to invite our speakers for the first session. Our session is on Pens and Trends, the know-how of BFSI marketing in 2022. I'd like to invite on stage Shufali Khalsa, Head Brand Corporate Communication and CSR, SBI General Insurance. Okay, while our backend team promotes Shufali, I'd like to invite on stage Kuldeep Pawar, Head of Marketing at Spice Money. Kuldeep will also be moderating the session for us. Next, we have Lalatendu Das, CEO Performix India. If our team could just give them speaker access.
Good evening, good afternoon, everybody. Can you hear me,
Yeah.
Sonali?
Yes, Kuldeep, I can. Great. Yeah, I'd
Good
also like to invite
afternoon.
Lalatendu Das, CEO Performix India.
Hello.
Great. Yeah.
Pleased
Hi,
to be here.
Lalatendu. Next, I'd like to invite Vineet Kapahi, Head of Marketing, Aviva Life Insurance. We also have with us Boniface Noronha, SVP and Head Marketing, Digital and Direct Sales, Access Mutual Fund. Great. It is indeed a pleasure to have you all with us today. And without taking any more of your time and the audience's time, I'd like to give it over to you guys. Kuldeep, you can take it forward from here. And we are in the process of adding Shifali, so as soon as she's here, we'll be promoting her to the speaker.
Thank you, Saloni. Thank you for introducing all of us. And
Anytime.
it's a privilege to be part of this forum today. Uh, Good evening, gentlemen. I will start with Mr. Das. If you could introduce yourself and then a little bit of your organization and what you do, and then we take this forward so that the audience gets to know what we're representing and what are we expertising at, right? Over to you, Mr. Das.
Sure. Thanks, Mr. Kuldeep. Hi, everyone. I'm Lalatendu Das. People know me as LD with my initials, and trust me, it's much easier to pronounce LD, which is my first name. I lead Performix in India, and we specialize in everything digital marketing, paid, organic, programmatic, commerce, so on and so forth. And we are part of Publicis Group. which is overall a global form when it comes to media and advertising. Personally, in my past life, I used to be a partner in McKinsey and Company driving digital initiatives, and I'm pleased to be here and looking forward to this interaction.
Thank you so much, LD. Look forward for an interesting conversation with you. I think I can now call you LD, right? Works.
Yes, please.
Good evening, Boni Face. Can I call you Boni?
Yeah, you can call me Bani.
Hi, Boni. How are you doing?
Hi, good afternoon, Kuldeep.
Boni, a quick introduction from your side will help the audience.
So my full name is Boniface Narona. You can call me Bani. Part of Access AMC, lead marketing and digital there. Been here for 3 years now. Prior to this, I had a 2 year stint in Vodafone leading digital there, and before that, almost 13 and a half, 14 years in HDFC Life, setting up the marketing team first from 2004, and then thereafter from 2010 till 2017 leading the digital business and digital marketing for HDFC Life. So almost a BFSI veteran with almost 18, 19 years of experience in BFSI industry.
Thank you so much, Boni. Glad you are here, and I'm sure the audience will look forward to hear from you the kind of diverse brands you've worked with, and largely in the BFSI space. Good to have you here. Over to Vineet. Vineet, if you could have a look at you and probably have an introduction from you, will be great.
Thanks, Kuldeep. Am I audible?
Yes, you're very audible.
Thank you so much, Kuldeep, and good to see you, Boni and LD. My name is Vineet. I work with Aviva. I head marketing, corporate com, and CSR for Aviva. I've been in the BFSI for a very short duration. I worked there for 5 years, but overall, I have had about 23 years of experience across various categories. In a nutshell, my first stint in BFSI and in insurance.
Right. Thank you so much, Vineet. And I think let's move on to the topic spends and trends. As in, what was your early thinking? I'll leave it to the entire group when a topic like this lands up in your discussion, and this is something which we go across in our daily conversations, right? Spends and trends. What are the new trends, and what sort of spends is our brand doing, or what sort of spends is the category doing? Uh, to my narrative, I would want to start at a sentiment where I think it's more of brand investments and more of new trends which are evolving, and the shift what we've seen in pandemic in terms of the media spends or the change in the media channels. There are a lot of changes what has been observed in terms of new age channels which have cropped up. We are forced to go digital over classical mediums like print, outdoor, and television. We've moved to a lot of these new age digital channels like OTT, your performance marketing, so on and so forth. So this question is to all of you. While BFSI clearly in the category has been spending the most as per the Dentsu report 2021, and my question is to the entire panel: how is this change really reflected in your brand journey? Have you guys really evolved to using new mediums over conventional mediums during pandemic especially? And what are those new mediums which probably new age marketeers should look at, or fintech players or startup players should look at in the current scenario where we will continue to be hybrid, and we've seen great adoption on the digital mediums coming in. So can we start with LD to begin with? While you've been on the other side where you deal with a lot of brands at your end, do you see this more of a BFSI phenomena, or this is more of all brands behaving in a similar fashion? And what are those mediums? Very interesting to know what are those mediums, which I think most of the audience will also be keen in listening to us.
So,
Over to you.
yeah, Kuldeep, before I start, since I come from the supplier side, serving many brands, there is one thing we need to understand before we go into the institution to the Indian consumer. and I categorize Indian consumer as true value seekers. These are not people who would be afraid to spend if you give them the value, right? So therefore, the Indian consumer is very quick to assess the ratio between value versus price they have to pay,
Right.
and that's a very essential factor when it comes to advertisement or marketing or anything, particularly more so in digital. Um, and uh, and I believe Kuldeep, each industry has its own nuances, and financial services is very different from consumer or CPG or any of the internet based businesses. Particularly when I see financial industry as an entity, I'm seeing two, three trends coming up. All right, as consumers, they're expecting omni-channel. Now it is hygiene, right? Gone are those days when you say, start this process online, come to branch, sign and do, right?
Correct.
That's it. No customer is going to wait for that.
Right.
Second, the customers are also responding well when it comes to personalization, right? If you just say, this is an offer tailor made for you, that's the differentiator. And then if you think from segment perspective, the millennials are more likely to get influenced by marketing, be it social, be it search or display or whatever. But at the same time, the loyalty factor with millennials is also questionable, right? So you may want sell, but you can't count on the next sell will go to them. So all these, if you think the various forces which is impacting, BSS as an industry, and you ask what mediums and all, in our research, we find the BFSI spend on digital is disproportionately high vis-a-vis the traditional medium. And there was one research which is KPMG and Google together. I think 50%, 57% of the spend of
Right.
BFSI as an industry is going on digital vis-a-vis the traditional medium. So digital is the way forward. I think that's coming out very clearly. But within that, it's very important to think about omni-channel personalization, thinking about the segments very right, and most importantly, getting the price to value equation very clearly from a product perspective. So I'll
Right.
pause here and probably
Right.
we can go deeper along the
I
conversation.
think, Bonnie, what is your take? Do you vouch on what the numbers are outside, and what LD also mentioned that BFSI is more skewed in terms of spending on digital over the conventional now?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So I agree with you completely. And in fact, I've seen that trend. And having worked in telecom and BFSI, and then BFSI before that, I've seen how the trend lines are in terms of spending patterns. So on an average, BFSI spends are almost like 45-50%. Uh, so almost sorry, on an average, almost 70% of the BFSI spends are on digital. Within that,
70%.
yeah, 70%. And
Wow.
of that, almost 40 to 50% are on search. The remaining is divided into social and other platforms, in fact. So that's how the split happens within this industry. At least that's true for some of the brands within my category, at least. And pre-COVID, in fact, BFSI had a 60-40 ratio, which has changed. And if you go to the smaller players, this trend moves to a 90%, because with smaller players, what happens is they have to rationalize the spends. Traditional media accounts for a big portion of your spends. If you start spending money there, almost your money will be sunk in, and you will find that you got very limited results out of it. So the idea is to focus, narrow, look at discerning customers who are intent on buying, customers who are intent showing an intent towards the category, and try and get them into the purchase funnel, or at least leave an impression where tomorrow, day after is when the customers wanting to purchase, probably you made or become a part of the consideration set, and therefore then the purchase happens. So that is what
Correct.
BFSI is focused. And I think, having worked in telecom and this both put together,
Yeah.
BFSI clearly knows how to spend their money rationally,
Yeah.
and knows how to ensure that there's a maximum ROI as compared to any other category.
So, Bonnie, I'm gonna have more of that telecom and BFSI with you because I've been in telecom as well. I think we'll talk more on that.
Sure.
But just to get those numbers right, because those were pretty interesting. You were saying 70% digital post pandemic,
Yeah.
and you said 40% or 60% is on search, is what you were saying.
Yeah, almost 50% is on search.
50% on search.
Pre-COVID, it was a 60-40 ratio, which has changed to now almost 70-80% of the money. And as smaller players, 90% of the money is focused on digital.
Superb. That's a great insight for all marketeers. I'm sure the amount of investment which needs to go on search is pretty interesting. While Shefali's joined us, Shefali, thank you for joining. And while I'll will come to you in terms of we are discussing post-pandemic. Has there been a trend in the mediums what we choose as marketeers or mediums what we choose as brands, right? And what is that? What are those mediums? What has evolved, and what are those new age mediums? What we are doing, and overall, is there a shift between conventional, classical, or conventional marketing over new age mediums? Is what the topic what we are discussing. I'll come to you. I want to get to Vineet, and then I'll come to you on this. Vineet, what's your view in terms of what Boni mentioned
Sure.
and what LD had to talk about the new age mediums, right? Let's understand what's the trend at your end.
See, as a category, BFSI traditionally also has been a high spender on performance. And yes, given the pandemic and all that, the boost on the performance has actually gone up. Not only performance, I think the overall digital has gone up. And when I say digital, I'll also take into account that the social platforms are also contributing a large amount of to it. In addition to that, I think a lot of content marketing now, people have started writing a lot of content because I think that plays a huge role in terms of really making an easy content, sort of which people are able to sort of really understand and comprehend. That's an area which people have started looking at. And I think that something which we sort of missed is also influencers. Influencers also play a huge role. And that's also an area where, you see a companies, especially the BFSI, because they want people to come in and write things about insurance and so on and so forth. That's again a area where you've seen an increase in terms of the spending.
Right, right. We need this portion what you mentioned, which is content marketing and influencer, right? All of us make a lot of efforts as marketers in terms of investing in user-generated content or
Yeah.
influencers or content for that matter, right? And I think Shefali, you can also join this discussion, which is very important. Most of these questions which land up coming in terms of justifying this investments which go in on content or influencer marketing or generated content, right? I'm sure the audience where we have a lot of marketers who've joined and a lot of founders as well at the startup level uh, really find it very difficult to articulate the entire investment which goes in this particular bucket and how does it really transform to business. How do you measure all this?
If I may take up the question.
Yeah, Shivali, please.
Sure. So, firstly, I'll answer the current question that you have raised. Basically, it also actually connects with the first question that you had mentioned. While definitely digital is the new traditional, while there was always a traditional marketing that we all have an affinity, all marketers do have an affinity, but digital is another part of that traditional, I would say, since the COVID. In fact, before COVID also, there were brands in the BFSI segment who had taken up, but COVID has per se forced all the brands to get into that. So, unprecedented situation was COVID that has forced entire world to shift virtually, and digital medium has been one of that impact, I would say, or the basically the effect of that virtual shift. I would say. Coming to a question on this influencer and how we measure the ROI. So when we talk about the digital as an important medium in the marketing, yes, digital has been a very important part of the marketing, but at the same time, with the new normal that we are setting up with the mask-free Bombay, at least I can say, the mass media is again taking up the pace. In fact, compared to the 2021 financial year, 21-22, especially in the GI segment, we have seen the brands have doubled their spends in the traditional media, which is a mass media, but at the same time maintained their spends in the digital part also. Now, talking about your second question, I would further elaborate this part. When we talk about the digital spends, it is split into two parts. One is purely related to performance, which is every penny is linked with ROI.
Right.
Every penny is linked with the lead, how is the quality, even the SEO spends that we have. That is business side of the spends in the digital part. The second part is what we spend on brand. Now, again, in that also, to some extent, it is also the affiliate marketing, which also turns out to be leads. And
Right.
the second part of this digital is purely your influencer and your social media promotions. You connect with, special days like in the BFSI segment also. I would say insurance is considered to be quite boring compared to banking also. But we have made that, I think we're keeping up with the pace with the social media trend that is there. As any other brand, as any other interesting FMCG or telecom brands, even insurance also connects with all the special days. Your Women's Day, Mother's Day, Father's Day, your Heart's Day, all such important days are connected. And you will see a very creative digital campaigns. So that is the one part, the second part of the digital spends that I'm talking. And of course, I would say from a marketer perspective, the right strategy is to balance between your visibility as well as the spends in all these three segments. While the performance definitely is connected with the, ROI, but the digital spends for the brand, the ATL, and being in insurance, I would say for me, BTL is also equally important. So striking
Right.
the right balance is the right strategy.
Thank you, Shefali. While Shefali, you joined in late, let me introduce you to the forum so that the audience gets to know you as well. We That was Shefali, everyone who's brand corporate communication and CSR for SBI General Insurance. We also have Subhashish who's joined in now. Subhashish, can we have a quick introduction from your side and then we continue with the discussion?
Yeah, the first introduction is for some reason my camera is not working.
Okay.
You have to
Not a
bear with
problem. I think we can hear you. Continue
yeah.
to introduce yourself.
Yeah, so
And
I'm in this luxury of not knowing anything about marketing, yet being the marketing head of my company. That's how Kotak works. You get shifted from completely unknown divisions to be unknown divisions.
right.
From handling institutional business for Kotak Life Insurance. So I'm the chief marketing officer for the last 3 years.
Thank you for
Every day I'm
joining.
learning since I don't know, since I am shamelessly know nothing about marketing.
No, I'm sure there are learnings from your end as well while you've been in the insurance for quite some time, and especially with the brand like Kotak. We will definitely take insights from you as well. Thank you for joining, Shubhashish.
Thank
And
you.
we'll continue our discussion. Moving forward, I had a specific question to Shefali. I've noticed a common thread of messaging around education and awareness. In your opinion, is encouraging financial literacy a trend that will continue being relevant and might even dominate in the BFSI sector? What's your view, Shefali, on this one? You want me to repeat the question? Or
Yes,
was I
I would
audible?
say,
Was I
no,
audible?
I got your question.
Yeah.
I got your question. It is more of, yes, very much. Am I audible?
Yeah, yeah, you're fine now. Yeah.
Am
Go
I
ahead,
audible?
Shefali.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So talking about awareness, yeah. So I would say from BFSI segment, the creating awareness for the BFSI products is actually very important, and it is also part and parcel of every marketer's role. Talking about insurance segment, I would say insurance is a very complicated product, and it is not a full product so far. It is still a very much a push product, and which is why we need to create that understanding, the need understanding with the audience here, and which is where spreading the awareness about insurance, because there are multiple products. In fact, general insurance, as a name, general insurance, people may not be able to relate. But when you talk about generally, health insurance or a travel insurance or a car insurance, they would quickly connect with that insurance. And in fact, the general insurance having such a bouquet of products, it is more of a day-to-day product, a day-to-day insurance for everyone's life. For a layman, it is actually everyday product is involved in their lives. So yes, spreading insurance about each of the product, how it connects and what is the need, how it benefits is actually currently we are at that cusp. Still, we are into that stage of under penetration. Talking about life insurance, still the penetration is quite higher compared to the global markets, the penetration of general insurance is very, very low, and which is why the need gap analysis was to, if we can push the awareness, is when we can move the needle from in that IDA model, awareness, interest, then desire, and then the action to buy. Same applies for mutual fund also, because mutual fund, as you know now, spreading so much of awareness about the category, thanks to MP getting that pool of all the mutual funds and creating that awareness, the category overall has benefited a lot over last 5 to 7 years, if you see. And same thing we had also replicated. In fact, the Life Insurance Council and the General Insurance Council, we had also come together. All the insurers have put the monies in a pool. We started the campaign. In fact, the hashtag we started the campaign name was "Faide ki baat for general insurance." Unfortunately, the period was very bad. We just started the campaign and it went into lockdown, so we had to stop the campaign. But LIC campaign, as you can see, LIC, I mean, is Life Insurance Council, not the LIC. But the Life Insurance Council campaign, sabse pehle life insurance is still going on.
Yeah.
Yes, and I'm sure we all would have heard the radio ads also. So that is the one more step forward, like the MP did. Mutual fund, matlab mutual fund sahi hai. Similarly, life has also replicated the same, and even GI, General Insurance Industry, has also initiated this campaign of Faide ki baat. General insurance, matlab Faide ki. So I'm sure we'll see the hope, the ray of hope very soon for the category awareness also. But I'm sure every insurer, even at SBI General, we do our bit of spreading awareness. In fact, we have adopted 2 states, Arunachal Pradesh and Meghalaya, to spread insurance awareness, because those two are the 2 aspirational states having the lowest insurance penetration as per the NITI Aayog data. So we are doing a lot of on-ground activity to spread awareness.
Sure, Shefali. Shefali, one last tweak to the same sentiment what we are in terms of you spoke about there has been a category education where campaigns like Sabse Pehle Insurance and Mutual Fund Sahi Hai have been initiative by the overall fraternity in insurance to drive a lot of adoption on ground, right? Has this really traveled to rural, and is rural also one of your focus? The reason, the question to you, we are a rural fintech. Spice Money is a rural fintech, and we are revolutionizing the way BFSI products go to rural India. So through our merchant network, we are offering financial and digital services across the deeper rural pockets in rural India. In the industry, in the ecosystem where we are, we clearly see there is a gap in terms of media communication, not really educating on ground, right? In the deeper pockets of rural India. What do you think should be the way forward in terms of reaching out to the last mile or the hinterlands of the world, where 65% of the population of rural India should get into a habit of getting insured, right? What's your take on that? We may not have anything at this point in time, but if given a chance, Shefali, what would be your take in terms of how do we take this forward in terms of creating a little more inclusive country and not having a urban-rural divide?
That's a very relevant question, especially for me, I would say, coming from SBI. We are the group company of SBI. So rural India definitely means a lot to us. Tier 2, Tier 3, Tier 4, and Tier 5 are the core markets that we believe is the real Bharat. While we, as a brand, as a general insurance brand, we do cater the metro urban customer as well as the Bharat customer. But yes, we do also have specified customers, products for these customers, in fact. Also, I would like to answer in 2 parts the question that you have. One, as I said, that the brand is definitely having a very high affinity being SBI. The one part that I would say that insurance is largely driven by distributors. So we do have microfinancing and rural channels like CSC, VLEs, microfinance, brands like many other brands. I don't want to take the names, but there are multiple smaller finance brands, microfinancing, where we can associate and distribute our products. That's one way of reaching them out, and we'll definitely love to explore the association with Spice Money as well.
Sure.
Yes, because it's still a push product for us. And on the other hand, the second part of the answer, I would say, there is a scheme by government which has been rolled out especially for farmers in the rural segment, which is called Pradhan Mantri Fasal Bima Yojana,
Right.
wherein we definitely have a very large share. We do participate in multiple states. Of course, it is by auction. So we try and bid for multiple states wherever we get. In fact, currently in the last Kharif season, we had been running the scheme for in 5 states, 5 to 6 states. So we do drive that campaign, and it's mandated. So whatever states we get, we drive this awareness of that scheme, to the farmers, hosting a lot of brand activations, a lot of promotional activities on ground, reaching out to the interiors, the blocks, village, etc., and reaching out to each, sarpanches to host that, panchayat and spread the awareness.
Got
So
it.
yes, I mean, as I said, we definitely have that vision that we cater the India as well as the Bharat also. And we can of course connect offline and see if we can associate as a brand to make this dream true.
Sure, Shefali. Thank you so much for that wonderful insight. Moving on to the next question. This is for if Vineet and Subhashish can contribute to this. How do you bring in innovation and create wows in marketing moments, especially when you're talking to the new age Gen Z consumer? And Subhashish sir, I'm sure you've not been on the conventional or the digital side of the marketing, but the kind of experience you bringing on table of more than 2 decades of insurance management. I think Kotak as a brand now is eyeing to get to a lot of Gen Zs as well. So this question I'm trying to simplify to get some answers out of you. So it may not be marketing, but I think more of a strategic lesson for us. How are you dealing in terms of managing Gen Zs today under the Kotak brand?
Okay, good question. If you're talking about Kotak brand, yes, I can speak of that. I spent nearly 3 decades in Kotak Group.
Right.
So you must have seen our 811 account. I mean, just after the demonetization happened, that has completed its 5 years. Number of customers that we are acquiring there in that brand in Kotak Group. Kotak is a platform, but Kotak Group is humongous. I'm not able to share that number with you. I'm not supposed to. It's many, many times the kind of we are getting in our online channel, which is the bank channel with its branches going out. It's amazing to see the way that channel is spreading. So on the back of that, entire Kotak Group, including us, is also trying to work out to see how we can get products which are simpler for these people. For example, if today you were to apply for a 50,000 loan, the first reaction of somebody in Kotak Bank or Kotak Group would be, "Arey, 50,000, you don't make too much money. How much will you make? Show me this paper, show me that paper," and so on and so forth, and make it unviable to even give that kind of a loan. He wants a 50,000 rupees loan. You can't force him to take a 5 lakh loan because your pricing is the same. So you got to work on reverse and bring down the unit pricing.
Right.
Or do things so that it doesn't cost you to do that kind of appraisal that you do on a 5 lakh rupees loan. I should be able to price it accordingly that if there are losses also, it's covered within the charging for the last slightly higher NPS for the new releases that you are doing. You have to adapt yourself accordingly. For example, in Kotak Life, a whole slew of products which we are calling Young India. It's in the making. We have not done it, but it's there. It's on the way. Where we're trying to look at products which are type insurance type products. Slightly difficult because insurance really is a long-term kind of a product which is there. Slightly difficult to bring in, but we are working hard, and I'm sure all insurance companies are working hard to bring that in. On moment marketing, I'll just add, it's a bit difficult being in a regulated industry like Kotak Life is, and for the matter, banking sector, to do something instantaneously. There are various loops you have to go through. You have your own regulator and you have other things to do. So compliance has a very heavy hand in terms of being very nimble on moment marketing.
Right.
Say. And we being in Kotak don't want to take, what we want to do is to take cuts on compliance. Can go, but compliance can't go. Compliance will be with you forever.
Right, sir.
Careful on that, yeah. So we may not be as nimble on moment marketing as Shefali has been ahead of us. You then plan out in advance. You plan out your day. You plan out those in advance and look at sufficient things that you can do around it. Compliance, etc. in mind. That's what
Got it, sir. I think good takeaways, keeping regulatory in mind, especially for BFSI sector, wows need to be planned in advance, is what my takeaway is from Subashi sir. I think wows, you can continue to do wows, but they need to be planned ahead, not
Kuldeep,
jump.
my name is Subhashish, not Subhashish sir. Huh? We don't call even Uday by, we don't even call
Subhashi.
Uday. We call him Uday. We don't call
Sure, sure,
him.
Subhashi, sure. I like that spirit. Thank you so much. Vineet, over to you. We'd want to listen from your side as well for the same question.
Thank you, Kuldeep. Thank you, Shivashish. I personally feel that we're talking about the Gen Z customer today. I feel that they're a very responsible lot today. For example, financial literacy or anything in as an investment comes to them at a very early stage. Uh, because of the pandemic and the subsequent lockdowns and whatever's been happening right now, I feel that insurance is now a very essential part of their portfolio, their financial portfolio. They do consider looking at this from a long term visibility perspective, and it's probably accelerated the growth of insurance when it comes to this particular generation. Very financially literate people who understand. If I were to really look at Wow and what is it that we can do in terms of personalization, I think the first thing is that we have to do away with the idea of one size fits all. We've got to look at really hyper personalization for these set of customers. Now, when I say hyper customization, we need to look at demand customized, or we look at flexible policy terms or premium paying terms, and how and when to pay premiums, and so on and so forth. They're really looking at something which completely matches what their need is. They're not really looking at you give package to them and they just sort of pick it up. No, they're very, like I said, they're very financially literate. They understand. They really understand what is their final requirement. So one is about the hyper personalization. The other thing that I also look at it is the products can't change too much that insurance has, but a proposition that actually fits their need. It's
Right.
like you start early, you retire early. They're of that sort of a mindset where they say, we want to really not really look at the traditional way of retirement, retiring at a 50 plus, so and so forth. So you have to really build propositions for them. A product can actually solve many needs for them. Somebody who's possibly looking at a 22, 23 years, getting married and so on and so forth. A proposition can be for a child. Proposition can be, if they're looking at an early retirement, a proposition can be for a saving that they need to sort of encash in 10 years from now. Those are things that we need to sort of look at, a proposition that really fits into the needs of those generations.
Right.
I think the third thing that I also want to look at, the journeys are now more what we say physical plus digital. Underwriting can't be physical, it can't be digital, it has to be mostly physical only, and so on and so forth. The touch points sort of have been always looked at as a metaphor of the funnel per se. You have awareness and a consideration and the entire funnel process that comes into play. But in today's context, the journeys aren't so linear and straightforward, because there's too much bombardment of everything that's happening all across. So we've really got to look at a sophisticated approach of really what is it that can get the attention of these people.
Right.
So I mean, if you're able to really get onto those, in my opinion, these could be possibly the three movements of getting to the Gen Z customers.
Awesome. Uh, Boni, LD, this question is for you, as in this is pretty much an extension where Vineet ended at. According to you, which is that medium which is currently emerged as one of the key importance or one of the biggest share on spending pie? So, while both of you, LD, can also vouch in terms of giving a holistic view, that which is that new age medium probably was not considered as one of the mediums uh, prior to pandemic and which is emerged now, and I think, or it could be was there prior to pandemic as well, but now has grown in terms of overall the spending pie has grown in that particular medium, which is that particular medium which has grown. This is for Boni and LD. If you could, and for Boni, it could be within your brand. If you've evolved to pick up one medium, probably which you've gone and spent more and seen results. And LD could give us a perspective in terms of industry wise. Do you see a couple of mediums or one medium which is seen clear growth and a lot of marketers, a lot of brands investing and seeing great traction on that particular medium? Yeah, Boni, I think you're on mute.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
So for us, I mean, in terms of spends, our digital spends of course increase, but within digital also, from the earlier focus of spending money in terms of performance marketing, there has been a clear long-term shift in terms of trying to engage with customers and educating them also. So which means that while a performance marketing spends continue, we are actually investing a good amount of effort and monies. The effort is more than the monies, because that's where it counts. So that is something which we are investing in terms of trying to engage with the customers in the long run. Plus, within that, also a pie of mobile spends have increased at almost 40% CAGR over the years, as compared to kind of a conservative 20% growth over the last 3 years before that. So right now, if you ask us, our focus in terms of spend is almost 80 to 20, mobile versus desktop. And within that, a major portion of our marketing spends is going towards in terms of content, and looking at educating customers, engaging with them in the long run. And which means our existing as well as new to category customers as well. We are looking at in terms of voice searches, we are looking at in terms of 10-second quick learn ads. We're looking at in terms of how do we engage with customers. We're looking at an omni-channel approach where a customer, because usually a customer is actually tied to 2 or 3 devices at a time. So what starts on mobile ends on desktop or goes to another device. So we're looking at how do we tie that entire and follow omni channel ad strategy there in terms of engaging customers. So in terms of spends, that's how the whole spend is shifting. In terms of content, what we are doing is we have actually looked at in terms of educating and empowering our customers, because we believe that an educated customer is a customer for years and advocate for lifetime. That's a clear path for us. And if you look at the market and the way the market has behaved post pandemic, I mean, there have been ups and downs. Markets fall with all the news which comes in, and then there's clear panic across the entire set of investors. But mutual fund, the reverse happens. When markets fall, investors rush in to invest. And that's where the smart investors or the educated investors make a difference. So we are looking at, in terms of one, educating our investors, looking at how we try and build an ecosystem of learning. So what we have done is over the last 2 years, right from pandemic, when the pandemic started, one, we built an omni-channel platform to cater to our customers. We built a new website, we build a new mobile app, we built a new distributor app, we've revamped our entire ecosystem of distribution. But more importantly, we built a new learning platform for our employees and our distribution partners as well. More importantly, what we've done is we have integrated learning and content within each of these platforms. So there's a clear intent which is showcased to our customers, saying that we want to make you aware of what you're doing, what is the category about, what is the product all about. We build a knowledge management system for driving learning. We build an integrated knowledge center with linkages to all our digital assets. We build a complete dedicated knowledge and content vertical to drive customer education. We build branded properties in terms of webinars across our partners, distributors, our fintech partners. We do multiple webinars every month with our distributors. We do multiple webinars with our customers. So the whole idea is to drive education to an extent where we believe that our educated customer is not just doing a one-time purchase, but over a period of time actually will purchase multiple times. And therefore, what we're doing is we're linking this with the CLV of the customer. A customer who interface with us multiple times, we look at in terms of what is the CLV of the customer, and we are trying to track that across the last 2 years from the time the first time the customer engaged with us on learning as well.
So what I hear you from Boni, there's no one clear medium, but it's the approach is about being integrated, being digital, and a very cohesive approach in terms of creating IPs, branding properties, branding content, and digital is the way to go, is what you're concluding in terms of
Yeah.
what is your conduct in terms of taking marketing ahead.
Yeah, but a clear focus in terms of
Performance.
not just performance, but also educating customers or in terms of content to engage
Right,
customers.
right. So content play backed with performance as well,
Yeah.
right? LD, give us some light in terms of what's working. Where should we invest? Where should we
Sure.
put in all the monies? Is it the reels? Is it the new age Josh? Because a lot of questions are floating from the audience as well. So we'll get to those questions, but I think you will have a lens in terms of you know where all brands are spending, and especially sitting out of ambience publicis sort of organization, and you've got great spenders with you as well. So what's your view? What's buzzing these days?
Yeah, Kuldeep, I think this is a great question. And to answer this, let me take a step back. In our experience, Kuldeep, the spend patterns are very much a function of the maturity of the brand. We can't paint all the brands in the same color on where people are spending. The reason I say that is for some of the newest brands that we are serving, and there's a good amount of money going in the top of the funnel activities, right? Creating the brands and all. In that particular segment, we saw the programmatic spend kind of catching up much more post-pandemic. That was the original question you came up with. But
Right.
I also agree with Bonnie that I'm seeing clients also focusing a lot more about content, branding, how do you do A/B testing, create different messages, and so on and so forth. Now, second part, we in Performix are known as a performance marketing agency, but also many of our clients are also realizing the value of organic client in acquisition. So we are seeing a lot of effort going in SEO, you creating your own content, focusing on SEO, working for the long term, while you are keeping the momentum on your paid media, right? Doing the performance. Now, if I come to the last piece, which is within paid media, we are seeing a disproportionate amount going into videos and social, and search being the bedrock of all this, right? So that's how I paint this market, very much a function of where your brand starting position is. And accordingly, you devise a strategy, whether I'm spending top of the funnel, mid funnel, or the bottom of the funnel. But one thing, Kuldeep, I saw as a trend, which is over last 18 months, which is a very profound learning as we talk to the client. There is a lot of focus on attribution, getting the attribution right. Are you measuring all the right? Because there are, Vinit told probably some time back, there is an overhang of digital outreach, right? Many people are kind of bombarding customers. So therefore, how do you think about measuring the ad, measuring the effectiveness, measuring the attribution, so that your planning and spend becomes optimized? I think that's a very profound spend, and many of our clients have reached out to us, and we are helping in setting that right. In addition to the core paid media, as well as the branding and top of the funnel.
Right, right, LD. Thank you. I think that was a good insight. And in fact, I'll conclude a lot of takeaways from that, LD, in the end of the conversation. So clearly, uh, it's more of a strategy play depending on the brand positioning and the intent of the brand. What will really call out the medium what has to be derived. But what you mentioned is clearly video is the medium, and search is where a lot of investments is what you've observed, is what I could get out of your entire outcome what you shared. There are a few questions which have been bounced at the panel, so I'm gonna read out those questions from the audience, and then we'll conclude with a couple of more questions which were planned. Don't want the audience to wait here. So the first question is coming from Siju Raju, and the question is: do you think BFSI brands can do well on short form apps such as Chingari, Josh, to reach the regional audiences? Anybody wants to take this up?
I can take that.
Please, Shefali. Yeah.
Yes, definitely. As I said, with the brand SBI, we definitely have a huge affinity. And at the same time, the challenge is the insurance product is a push product. We still need to create that need and awareness, which is why such such apps, such social media apps also helps a lot to reach out and talk in the vernac language, in the tonality or the language, for both sense, and that's how we make our message communicate to that audience as well. So I would say when the TikTok was in play before the COVID, we were the brand who were doing actually as a GI. I think we were the first one who were running campaigns on TikTok also, to with the same vision to reach out to that mass, with the tonality of the messaging as well. So yes, these apps definitely can work for BFSI as well.
So, when you typically reach out through these apps, the way to reach out is it that you create user generated content or there are ads to be played on these platforms? How does it work? As in, this could be answered by LD
It
as
dep-
well. Yeah, and
I can
sorry,
answer that. It
but,
depends on the DNA of the app, depending on the DNA of the social media. So most of the, like, Instagram definitely works on influencer today. So depending on that concept of that social media platform, we do create a content for.
I think Shefali is going through a network challenge. LD, you would want to
I'm sorry,
answer?
was it not audible?
Yeah, you're audible. You're audible. I think you can switch off your video, Shefali, so that you'll be able to go
Sure.
through your
Yeah.
conversation.
Should I repeat? Should
Yeah,
I
yeah,
repeat
yeah,
what I
yeah.
said?
Yes, yes, please.
So what I meant is that usually the content depends on the DNA of the social media app that we are basically driving the messaging. For example, Instagram as a platform is largely driven by influencers today. So depending on that, on TikTok also, there was a trend of influencers, and those
Right,
influencers were micro influencers. From the
right,
cat B to cat E perspective also, that used to work very well
right,
because that is the mass we wanted to connect.
right. Anybody else who's done influencer campaign on these formats, which is now obviously we're not left with TikTok any longer, but Chingari, Josh, or Reels for that matter, any of the brands have done it here or intend to do that? Okay, Subhashish Kotak is not done at that yet. Boni, what about you, Vineet? You've explored.
So we haven't explored the regional apps per se, but I mean, absolutely open to. See, we've got to also understand what part of the brand journey are you in. If you're really looking at building an awareness today, they'll be good to build awareness in the regional level, the regional
Right,
vernacular sort of it, right? But uh, anything further down the funnel in terms of a consideration or something else, right now, I think they need to be explored. From a awareness point of view, I mean, the more wide you get, it works for us. Beyond that, you really need to be specific. Will you be able to sort of reach out to those audiences in what they want to really hear in that sort of format? It all matters about that.
sure. LD, any input from your side in terms of media spends? Do you see any movement happening on brands interested in spending on these platforms?
So, Kuldeep, Chingari and Josh, I haven't come across these two platforms in particular, but I agree with what Shefali was saying earlier. The vernacular language is taking off. And we are seeing campaigns running on YouTube also on vernacular language video platforms and all that.
Yeah,
And even in the influencer segment, we are having those, but on these two specific platforms, I haven't had any experience.
I'll
right,
just add on to that. I mean, vernacular, I think we are doing it. We just launched a campaign, late Ab Delay Mat Karo Guru. It's there on YouTube, Hotstar. It's there. It's coming on PVR. So yes, language is definitely there, and we're going to do it in Tamil and a couple of other languages. Copy that thing. But short form of the specific language apps, no, I don't think.
you've not gone.
Or I'm not aware of any other company which is actually BFSI company which has gone deep into that. But might be worth looking for sure. So I'll take away this piece of information from you.
Right. So we'll move on to the second question. From my perspective, Chingari, Josh, TikTok, or Reels, I think for startups like us, where we don't have a lot of spend, we've tried it and it works for us. and it's pretty engaging, pretty educating, especially when you're dealing with tier 2, tier 6 category of people and multilingual. You don't need great influencers. You just need people who are from the same community, and a lot of user generated content can really make complex products easy through reels or Josh and Chingari. That's our learning at Spice Money. Moving on to the following question from the audience again. If we look at scaling up volumes, apart from Google, FB, publisher, and affiliates, do you feel there are any untapped platforms where we can venture? This is for everybody, please. Should I repeat the question? So the question says, anybody who's looking at scaling volumes, obviously this is numbers. Apart from Google, Facebook, publisher, and affiliates, do you feel there are any untapped platforms where we can venture? So Boni, you would
Right.
want to take
So,
this up?
yeah, the
Yeah.
opportunities are immense. I mean, we've talked about younger audiences and how there is a behavioral shift. We've spoken about in terms of how the last 2 years there's a lot of youth which has, by virtue of fintechs, got into investing, whether it's on equities or whether it's on mutual funds. Now, where do we reach out to these customers or this youth, which is the 20 to 30 year olds? So, if you look at OTT, that is one untapped, medium. So a lot of brands are spending money, but not to the extent where we can. So if you look at IPL and the scale at which IPL is viewed on OTT platforms, if you look at some of the other OTT platforms which are driving content and the level of engagement these OTT platforms have with their users, there is a huge opportunity there for users to actually reach out, for brands to reach out on these platforms and advertise there and build a kind of engagement which will help in the long run. So that's one part of it. The second is in terms of regional media. So if you look at, there is an opportunity in terms of tying up with regional local media. So trying to answer the earlier question and this question together, if you look
Right.
at, if I reach out to a newspaper, or if I look at a channel which is serving a Kerala audience or a Tamil Nadu audience or even a Kolkata audience, but having digital presence there. So there's huge opportunity in terms of trying to look at inventory on their respective digital platforms in those markets, where you can combine the power of regional and local reach also, because there's
And
a huge localized following or consumption of these platforms and this digital media within that audience in that state in that region.
and that will reduce the cost of acquisition as well, Boni, and the cost of impressions as well if you go
Cost
regional.
of impressions will definitely come down if you have good engagement, if you have good content, and if you're educating customers. It is going to help you in the long run. Amphi says that next growth is going to come from beyond 30 markets. So if we have to grow, if we have to get these audiences, if you have to spend our investor awareness program funds wisely, then this is the markets we'll have to look at.
Awesome.
I
Awesome.
would just like to add that I don't know
Yes,
about
Subhashish.
others, but our experience in affiliates, I don't think has been very good. You get a lot of leads, but I think the quality of what is an affiliate,
Right, right.
I
In
don't
fact,
think
I
is good.
that's the reason I think the audience is trying to seek answers
Beyond
beyond
these,
Google, FB
yes,
publisher and
yes.
affiliates. I think we've got three answers, two answers from Boni saying that OTT is what we should explore. Second is regional digital mediums, not print, because that's an expensive proposition. Regional digital, because obviously the question is digital as a platform. Vinit, LD, Shefali, anything you'd want to
I'd
add to
just
the
like to add one more thing, if I
Sure,
just may.
sure.
I don't think podcasts have been very well used.
Podcast?
That's
Right.
something that we are looking into it certainly. A lot of people listen to a lot of radio, so
I think
there could be,
podcast more will be brand building, Subhashish. Over
yes,
yeah,
that is there, but
yeah,
you can engage, you can
absolutely.
ask people to dial in, you can do a few things.
Right, right. So we need
If I
Shefali,
may
LD.
add here,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah, I think lastly, most of the things are covered, but one more perspective that I would like to add is metaverse is the new buzz. That's where we definitely marketers are looking forward, or rather waiting to see the development, the way it is shaping up.
right, right. LD, Vineet, any
Yeah.
platform you think
So, so
is
Kuldeep, I think since we are talking about BFS, this is just one side of the story. But when you think about overall performance media and all, there is a bunch of work happening in commerce when it comes to Amazon, Flipkart, and these are like massive, right? And I'm seeing comparisons in other industries is equivalent to your Google and Facebook. And then when it comes to on those platforms, if you want to give a working capital loan to a merchant or do you want to give a personal loan to a consumer who is buying a heavy duty item, I think those things are kind of converging into BFSI. So I would not, as a BFSI customer, I would be very thoughtful on how to think about these commerce platforms as the next growth horizon when it comes to acquisition.
right,
I
right,
think I think I agree with LD on this. I think collaboration with the non-BFSI players today can actually strike. You can actually mix and match and really understand, and then really take that as example to scale up. So non-BFSI players which have the scale can be a good option to be looked at.
clear. I think we're tight on time and we'll move on to the following question. I hope, Bhagat, we've answered your question. Wasim Sayed has a question for Shefali. I think this is a question for everybody. As Shefali mentioned that every DM campaign is linked with ROI. How do you look at huge spends that's happening on YouTube for brand awareness campaigns? Since the media buying on YouTube has become so expensive, how do you see it justifying the ROI?
Yeah. So basically, as I explained, the spend on the digital media is also divided into one is purely performance based, which every penny is linked with the ROI. But the second part is more of brand building. But that may also lead to churning the leads and some part of business. But the measures for that is not purely performance. The measure differs in this part of the spends where we have a digital spends, but for the brand. So maybe purely the insurance awareness, I'm not really linking it with the business, right? So the
Right.
measures here would be completely different. The number of views, if the campaign was CPV, then it would be, of course, the measure would be views and so on. So
Right.
that there is a complete divide between the objective of the spends on the digital, whether it's branding or performance based.
So
Kuldeep,
Wasim,
I'm sorry, I just have to leave. Unfortunately,
no,
all of
Shubhashish,
us have
we have one
multiple
last
meetings. I'm
we
so
have
sorry
last
about this.
concluding question, but it's up to you. You can continue.
Yeah,
Uh,
I'm sorry about it, but you got another, hold on.
Thank you, Shubhashish, for
All the
joining.
best. Thanks for having me. Thank you.
Thank you. Wasim
Kuldeep,
Saeed,
30 seconds more on Wasim's question, continuation to what Stephanie said. And this is the attribution model I was talking about before. Now, using data science, because it's very hard to justify the spend that you do on brand. But if you get your attribution modeling right on what was the cause and what was the effect, it becomes a very easy ROI conversation. And we are seeing a lot of work in getting those data scientists along to the attribution modeling right for people
right,
to make very much informed decisions saying that how much should I spend on branding versus what.
right, right. Right, LD, thank you for getting that attribution, getting your attribution right on your brand investments and your performance investments as well. While we definitely attribute our performance investments, but do we do that on our brand investment is questioned. And I think as marketeers, we need to spend in a lot of time and build that infra in terms of getting that right attribution in place if you have to continue spending money. So that's a very important factor for us to continue the trend of spending and investing in our brand. I think we should invest in creating that attribution over investment and ROI, right? Uh, Wasim Sayed, I hope we've answered your question, and we'll move to our last question, one of our last questions. This is for everybody. A lot is said about the power of IPL marketing, and in fact, Boni spoke about it. Boni's been part of the telco side and now BFSI, and not that this question is only anchored at Boni, but this is for everybody. A lot is said about power of IPL marketing with BFSI brands making the most of the event. How relevant and important such events for BFSI brands are, and how are BFSI brands leveraging IPL, or how can they effectively capitalize on similar events in future? So do you actually believe in IPL? First question. Do you, as brands, do you have really invested in IPL in past or any of the seasons? And do you think brands need to invest in IPL, and do they get the kind of ROI what IPL investments ask for? What's everybody's view on this?
So I'll take this first
Sure, Bonnie.
because Amphi is currently spending a lot of money on it.
Yeah.
So the BFSI category historically has spent almost 100 to 150 crores on IPL each year. In 2020, post-pandemic, this has increased almost 150 crores, 170 crores in fact. Current IPL spent by BFSI is almost close to 200 plus crores.
Right.
And as I said earlier, Amphi is also spending money on. We're using Sachin as a brand ambassador. So I'm speaking on behalf of Amphi here. In terms of the money we're just spending in terms of creating awareness and trying to reach a wide audience with the intent of growing the category, and they're doing a good job at that. Uh, so what brands are doing and we are doing specifically is that we are trying to link our own media inventories, creative tone and stories to include sports as a relatable theme. So brands are also using OTTs like Hotstar for specific audience specific programmatic lead campaigns with proper CTAs in all the OTT ads, so that interested user can actually take immediate action and then enter the purchase funnel after that. So which is where we're trying to build that connect. So Amphi is doing the job on behalf of us in terms of spending on sports and IPL. We are trying to leverage as a category on that. And our immediate objective there is to ensure that we leverage on what Amphi is doing in terms of educating customers, but driving our own educational content on mutual funds through investor awareness programs across digital and TV, but using sports as a theme there, using cricket as a theme, so that there's a context and there's relatability in terms of how we connect IPL and what Amphi is doing and what we are trying to do. And it is helping us in terms of having a meaningful conversation with the customers and leaving a long-term impact as well.
Right, Bonnie. Vineet, Shefali, LD, any views on IPL as a property, and uh, have you done it in the past? You don't believe in it. You don't. I think whatever your emotions in terms of IPL.
We certainly believe in the IPL, but sports marketing is big in India as we speak right now. I think sports, for whether it's the IPL or whether it's anything else today, right? Yeah. But I think anything which is a premium sports like an IPL or something must be viewed actually through the lens of returns. If it actually gives you those sort of returns, I think it's phenomenal to be a part of it. BFSI per se as an industry has obviously been the first mover when it comes to whether it is in IPL or any other sports marketing, or even for that matter, sports personalities. They've been endorsing and participating in all this. But like I said, everything is a function of a lens of what returns are you going to be getting.
Yeah, yeah. Makes sense. Being practical is more, I think, meaningful, mindful in terms of being a marketer. I think most of the startups, what I look at, or brands have started treating IPL like a mecca of, you have to take the brand there, and that's where the key highlight in terms of brand reaching an IPL gets to a stature that हमने IPL कर लिया, so हम बड़े brand बन गए. So that's what I was keen on hearing. I think Shefali's dropped as well. LD, any inputs from your side? LD, can you?
Sorry, I was on mute. No, I think you're right. We're seeing IPL as a sporting event, and but the only thing is, I see the investment from BFSI is much more top funnel activity to increase reach. And within IPL, more than TV, I'm seeing more on Hotstar and OTT kind of investment to get the wider reach at the right price point. Again, I come back to the initial thing, right? Many of our clients are value seekers, right? So where's the maximum bang for the buck? And the OTT kind of gives that in terms of reach.
Right. Thank you. I think we from this we come to an end to our session. Thank you, LD, Vinit, Bonnie, Saloni, for making this happen. We had a great audience as well, who was, I think, very active in terms of reaching out to us with their relevant questions. I hope we've answered their question to best of our capabilities and time, keeping time in mind. I think all of us are available offline as well. Anybody would want to reach out in terms of figuring platforms and trying to find new ways of doing things. Not that we know it all. I think we can figure it all is the way to do. Thank you once again, Social
Thank you,
Samosa.
Kuldeep. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you,
Thank
guys.
you.
Thank you, speakers, for being there today.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. Thank you. So with this, we wrap up our first session for the day, and I don't think there could have been a better start. So many insights, so many intricate details that we usually don't know about. Anyways, now moving on to our next session for the day, for which we have a topic called cryptocurrency, marketing crypto without marketing crypto. For this panel, I'd like to invite Navoneel Chatterjee, Joint President and CSO, Rediffusion, Ramalingam Subramaniam, Head Brand Marketing and Communications at CoinDCX, Bhargavan Bahera, CEO and co-founder of DeFi, Darshan Batija, co-founder and CEO Vault, and Jyotirmay JT, founder and CEO Hive Minds. Hi guys. Am I audible?
Yes.
Great.
Hello.
Thank you once again, guys, for joining us today. A lot has been happening in the crypto space in the last few years. Cryptocurrency has gone from this enigma that no one could understand to a great investment avenue, and it has piqued a lot of consumer interest. It has piqued a lot of government interest. A lot has been going on in the space, right? So the whole idea of today's session is to bring out, what's happening in crypto marketing and what is the best way forward given that a lot of latest developments, right? So I think I'd like to start off the session with the first question, which I'd like to direct towards the brands, to begin with. Right, so a lot has happened in the crypto marketing space in the last few months. There have been a couple of government debates. ASCII also had released certain guidelines, and a number of brands also decided not to invest in IPL advertising this year, till they figure out the way forward. So if you had to encapsulate the current situation, how would you, if we could start with Ramalingam? Okay, I think he has not been able to join in yet. In any case, okay, Darshan, could we start with you?
So thanks so much for having me. Hi, everyone. I'm Darshan, co-founder and CEO of Vault. We have a crypto exchange and lending platform. I think the crypto marketing space has been very exciting for the customer because over the last year or so, we saw the broader mainstream acceptance of this asset class. Of course, it was spearheaded through everything that was happening in the NFT world and the creator economy coming into Web3. Facebook rebranding to Meta definitely helped, at least sentimentally, if not anything else. But with regards to marketing in India in particular, I don't think that as long as you're creating value, there is no shortage of customers interested in onboarding onto a platform or service that you provide. It's always rather treading the fine line between what you can say that the customer wants to hear that you're actually doing versus whether you're going to trip somebody's, whether you're going to step on someone's nerve, and that's that could be banking, that could be regulatory, that could be anybody else involved in the value chain here, and it's been very exciting. When we started 4 years ago, it was more on the lines of explaining why crypto should be part of someone's portfolio. We don't do that anymore, thankfully. We're well past that. And right now, the conversation is more around there's clear customer demand. Do you want the business or not? When it comes to communicating with banking and the like. But as long as you have a very clear path on what you service for the customer. Channels are irrelevant. The messaging is all that. Just efficient communication of that has helped us get this far.
And Bhagavan, if you could share, from Defy's perspective on what's going on.
Sure. Thanks for having me here as part of this panel. My name is Bhagwan. I'm the co-founder of DeFi, which is a social crypto exchange. We make crypto more fun and social by having your friends on the platform as well. Right. So over the last couple of years, there has been like a lot of boom in the crypto adoption, as Darshan said. But currently, the path that most people are following is a path of constraint, right? So over last year, there was a lot of advertising over IPL and other channels. So today, like the crypto exchanges and people in the crypto ecosystem are coming together to create guidelines, to create paths in which they should advertise in a more responsible way, right? So to sum it up, it would be like people are advertising in a constrained way, with keeping focus that we must educate people that what is crypto about, and what should be some of the strategies in which people should believe and invest in crypto. How can they think more long term and not just think of crypto or blockchain as a get rich quick scheme, right? So the ecosystem is coming together to create platforms so that we can educate consumers, we can create guidelines about advertising, and we can highlight the risks and rewards to the people, right? So, and create products that are self-educating as well, right? Where people do not get tricked, but they understand the risks and they evaluate, and then they can participate in the ecosystem.
Thank you, Bhagavan. Hi, Ramalingam. It's great to have you here. So initially, the first question that we're discussing right now, from a brand perspective, how would you describe the current state of crypto marketing with everything that's happening? Right from the decision of not investing in IPL advertising to the new ASCII guidelines, to in general the consumer trends that are seen.
So, see, this is part of the journey of marketing. There will be guidelines that will be in place. There will be changing dynamics of the market. How we react is what defines how good we are, right? So overall, ASCII guidelines is a welcome move. Not doing IPL has been a choice for various reasons, specific to companies as well as as an industry body, as well as various other factors. But overall, I feel consumers are still discovering the various use cases that are possible. They are sharpening their investment behavior, and as marketeers, we have to help them facilitate that journey into getting into crypto and blockchain. So I think a lot of work needs to be done as for us marketeers, but and a lot of potential is still there to be uncovered. So it's a good time.
Yes. Thank you. Thank you, Ramalingam. If we take the conversation to the agency side of things, Jyotirmay, if we can start with you. From an agency perspective, you must have seen a number of brands in this space. What do you think are the core challenges that these brands have been facing? Jyotirmay, I think you're still on mute.
I have unmuted.
Yeah, you are.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. So I run an agency. We work with crypto. We work with one of the larger Indian players in the crypto market. And we have been working with them from 2019 or so. And later in the last year, when things were at the, when many cryptocurrency exchanges, especially participated in the trading platforms, participated in IPL, we worked with a couple of other players alongside. So the biggest challenge has been the, because it's a regulated market and regulations are changing as we speak, there are a lot of things which are changing. Adapting to those regulations and operating is a challenge. But from an advertising point of view, I think one of the things is the inventory, right? Like Google is out of the option there. And many of the retargeting platforms, which are massively large, like Criteo, is also out. Meta, at least, is opening it up in certain ways. So when the inventory goes sparse, the cost of the inventory goes up. It's like every crypto player is operating on the same set of inventory. So that is one part of the challenge. This whole understanding the guidelines and playing by the guidelines is also something which is a very operational problem. Now, the third aspect is pertaining to the communication to the customer. On one side, the regulatory bodies are saying that, look, you need to be very transparent, you need to educate the customer, but then, you cannot use many terms in your communication, you cannot use currency, a lot of these restrictions also make it extremely difficult to produce content. From a marketing point of view, especially for the advertising piece of the content. I mean, you can still put it out in your content on your website and things, but for the advertising content, it becomes a massive challenge. If I also have to talk about like how are we dealing with this, so most companies used influencer marketing, they used affiliate platforms. There were a lot of mass marketing that also happened because of this. I don't know if it was a chance happening for India, which, I mean, we recently saw 5 Super Bowl ads from crypto market in the US. I mean, there's the massive sporting event in the US, which is similar to our IPL. India, because of these restrictions, took a big bet, I would say. That's why I said it's a chance happening possibly, that we did not go with a niche audience. We pretty much ended up trying to open up crypto to the large IPL audience last year. Which kind of debunked a lot of things. Typically, a product of this nature would have gone from a dispelling audience kind of a approach from an audience targeting. I want the tech janta, I want people who can understand DeFi and, like the whole decentralization and aspects of it and stuff. But here in India, because it went live on IPL, it became more of, look, you can trade with crypto. It's a financial instrument. And not getting into way too many specifics of it. So on one way, this challenge kind of led to this massive exploration, which turned out to generate millions of people adapting to crypto. I will talk about the offside of it a little later in one of the other little later, because I think we have a problem in India where we have a lot of people trading, but with really small amount. Whereas in the US, the market is very different. There are fewer people, but then, the trading volumes are big. So these are specifically some challenges with respect to whether it is outreach and, the communication and what kind of audience we are attracting. And yeah, I'd be happy to hear from others. Yeah.
Thank you, Joshi. That does give us a lot of insight. Now, my next question is to you. So from a creative perspective, from a advertising perspective, how would you encapsulate the current state of crypto marketing, and where do you think it is headed?
Okay, you're asking me, right?
Yeah.
Okay, hi. Navunil, I'm the joint president and CSO of Rediffusion, which is an advertising agency. We actually work on a brand which is CryptoWire, Jignesh Shah, 63 Moons. So yeah, we have a little bit of experience on that. Right now, the market, and from an advertising point of view and every point of view, it's basically a bit like the biblical paradise, the Garden of Eden. It's like the forbidden fruit right now. And that's what the state of crypto is right now. And anything forbidden, as you know, is liked and loved even more. So there is, I'm sure, a pent-up demand which is kind of building for it. A lot of people want to play for it and not being able to, or whatever, that's happening. It's like alcohol is alcohol anywhere, but where it's a dry day, it's a dry state, it just smells and tastes a little bit better. So that's I would say, if I have to kind of metaphorically put the state of crypto right now, that's one. The second thing is, while I may not be completely, the veracity of what I'm going to say may not be completely, I'm not fully sure about it, but what I've heard, and these are rumors, keep floating. I don't know whether it was really a group which kind of decided we will not advertise. What I hear is the government nudged to say, boss, in IPL you will not advertise this. It's more it's a powerful nudge or a persuasion which has come from the higher up, rather than I may be wrong on that, but that's what I've heard. So it's not that if they could advertise and they chose not to advertise. But even if they didn't choose to advertise, even if you park the persuasion and the nudge from the powers that be, if you keep that aside, the second thing which took over there is pragmatism. Because right now, there is a taxation to it, and when there is a taxation to it, the love for it, the demand for it, and all of that, it becomes questionable. Where does the money come? Can you, so all those questions are real questions. But again, what the insider thing is, after 5-6 months, probably legislation rules are going to change, things are going to get normalized, and then the boom will happen. I mean, that's the way I think it's kind of headed right now. My prediction, if I have to say, is right now it's wait and watch for everybody. But in advertising also, there has been an evolution. There was a time when FMCG brands used to dominate the conversation. Then came within FMCG the cola wars. After that, it was telecom, Airtel, Vodafone, and all of that, and they will compete. Then came the mobile handsets, Nokia, now of course Samsung and all, OnePlus and all of these brands and they are the big spenders. Currently, I think that's moved to fantasy gaming, and the Dream 11s of the world and all of that. I'm sure the future is going to be crypto dominated. Big ticket money, big TV, heavy spends. I mean, that's what I foresee in the future for crypto, actually. Yeah, that I would say that's my piece for the moment. Yeah.
Thank you, Navadan. That gives us great insights. So, I will moving on to my next question. While we have established the current situation, I think majorly what has been coming out is the educating consumers bit, right? So while the certain amount of it, initially, Bhagavan and Darshan mentioned, even Ramalingam, that initial phase of educating the consumers has been done. But going on to a elderly demographic or going on to the masses who are beyond metros, what are some of the measures that you guys are taking on this front? We could start with Bhagavan if that works.
Sure. So I believe education is never done, right? So the crypto space is evolving really, really fast. New instruments, new coins, new ways to invest your money are always coming up. So education is a constant and evolving things. We constantly need to educate people, right? And with the constraints on advertising that are coming in today, educating people is the best way to actually advertise, right? So where you actually make a person aware about what you are selling before you actually start selling, right? So a person gets convinced and then he buys something, right? Education also helps build trust with your customers, right? Education is also a way to build community around your product, right? So I believe education is never done, and it's a constant process. Even in the US, larger companies like Coinbase and all have built their advertising around educating people and winning that trust and bringing customers to their product. Right? So apart from education, I think community is another angle of marketing where you do not hard sell to people, but make people part of a community where they are there together and they believe in your mission, they believe in your product, they believe in crypto and think that this is for the longer run. You teach them strategies on how they can identify the risks and what's in for them for the longer term, right? And they see other people doing things. You bring in experts, you bring in influencers, you answer their questions, what they have about tax, what questions they have about the risks involved, what are the new and upcoming things, right? So that's a great way to actually advertise without advertising directly to people, right? And also, so crypto is still a new ecosystem for the common person, right? So bringing in influencers and experts who know better than the common man and who can slice and dice and get to the core of it and help people get started with the journey. Also helps in the journey of people, right? So I think community, education, and and a good product obviously will lead to greater awareness and a lot of people participating in the ecosystem.
Ramalingam, if you could give me some insights into your marketing blueprint, what is it that you guys are doing to drive more footfalls to the product?
Sure. So, see, education was one part that we started way back in 2019-20 when we launched our education product first before we launched our mass product. Very clear from our side, unless I educate, I don't have the right to acquire, right? And at the end of the day, this is an investment product, investment instrument where people are putting their hard-earned money. We need to be educated about it. I have seen various questions also about vernacular, and a lot of different fellow panelists have mentioned about the lack of channels that are there, right? So over the last 2.5 years, this is something that I always joke around, that we have left no stone unturned. We have actually unturned a few stones again just to find out if there is some scope out there. We have done vernacular. We have done influencer-based vernacular. We have done direct vernacular. We have done OTT. When people were still experimenting, we have got actually scaling OTT. And I'm talking about not just the top ones like Hotstar and so on. We have also done very regional, very specific stuff. In the previous session also, I was listening about short story apps and stuff. Like, we have tried all that. So for us, what we have learned after trying all of this is, yes, a level of awareness is for sure needed. The right form of communication is also needed. And there is a lot of confusion out there. A lot of speculation out there. One of my fellow panelists also mentioned certain things that he has heard. This creates a lot of confusion at the end of the day to the consumers, right? Because they are not sure whether whatever they are hearing is correct, right? So for us, the biggest challenge is addressing that, and how do I do it more consistently is something that we generally focus on. There are channels that are available. We use them as much as possible. There is an exhaustion limit. So being very agile is something that we feel is key to marketing. Although we are today doing large spends, we are doing big budget activities, the mindset still remains on running quick experiments, figuring quicker ROI. Because for us, as I think one more panelist mentioned, the channels are expensive, and to maintain CAC for a marketeer is always the holy grail, right? So that's something that we are always focusing on. But from a strategy perspective, the focus is building a right brand. Focus is building the right communication, and then the next step is figuring out channels where I can do it. So that's the general strategy that we are applying.
Great. So I think communication first strategy is probably one of the biggest takeaways I get from you. Darshan, if you could point out, which platforms have worked best for you guys, so far, in getting all kinds of audiences across age groups.
Sure. So we have a slightly different demographic than some of the other companies on this call and representatives on this call. In the hierarchy of needs, in the crypto world, we're typically not the first point of interaction of a crypto customer. They typically go through a product that is exclusively focused on being that first point of contact, and post that initial level of education, they figure out that they want a few additional offerings or a more tailored experience, and that's when they typically come to our customer base, and that's when they come to our brand. When we talk about that persona, they're not really exclusively centralized in the metropolitan. Additionally, they're slightly older than the crypto customer base that some of the other brands may interact with. So when you say what can crypto companies do to go beyond metro, I think we location has never been a parameter that we optimize for, because what we rather optimize for is their level of information that they've already absorbed in the crypto space. So there are some brands that are focused on expanding the market, and the best way to expand a market is when there is a stable regulatory environment, and all we have to do as brands playing in the same space would be educating them on the pros and cons, and as well as the risks associated with the asset class, and see whether it's the right asset class for them, not over-promising. That's where the regulators hold us accountable for the same, but ensuring that most disclosures are communicated. I think we're making significant progress on that with the guidelines mentioned, with for whatever reason, everybody dialing back on the Indian Premier League and the like. But from here on out, I think the focus needs to be on the upside of what crypto can do for people. Now, whether it's an asset or a currency, we unequivocally can say in India it's behaving like a currency. There's no doubt. I'm sorry, as an asset. Even if, let's say, a few people want it to behave like a currency, the regulatory climate is not going to allow that to happen. We've gotten that pretty clear. So if it is to behave like an asset, what are the use cases that companies should innovate on? I think that's what I would nudge the next wave of entrepreneurs to focus on. Don't try to build the next CoinDCX, because CoinDCX does a great job at that. Try to find your own niche. And I think, again, Bhagwan's doing a fantastic job on the same. We found our niche, and what we're focused on is ensuring that if, let's say, our services are appealing to the broader demographic of investors, come on board, you're going to have a fantastic experience with us. And when we know that, that's when we dive into what channels work. Given that this is an older audience, given that this is an educated audience already, the burden of proof falls on us solving for trust as a brand, not solving for crypto being trustworthy anymore, but rather is our brand the right destination for those services for you? And a few things go into making that happen. One is associating with the right regulators, associating with the right investors, associating with the right brands outside those two categories. And we've made significant progress to make that happen. We've raised from very reputable investors, as some of the other folks have as well. We've attempted to file licenses for multiple jurisdictions. Of course, that doesn't solve the India problem per se, but it still goes a long way to solve for trust. And beyond that, we're collaborating with brands that we feel closely represent our values. And more nuanced from there, let's say once we solve for trust, distribution with the existing customer base is fairly easy. We can do app notifications, we can do email. We don't do that at all. We because this is a high net worth customer, it's more them coming out to us when we typically initiate these conversations. But when we're looking to expand our customer base, brand collaborations has worked for us. Partnering with people who have the same voice with the same demographic has worked for us. And our brand is slightly different. We're just a lot more selective on what we do.
Fair enough. So I think the takeaway has been finding your niche and partnering with the right kind of peers and experts. Right. And actually, Darshan, a lot of what you said also sort of leads to my next question. So like we all have discussed that, the certain apprehensions or certain transition phase that has been going on in terms of deciding how crypto brands need to pursue marketing. So in the meantime, what are, like, for brands, I would want to know, what are you guys doing to keep your community engaged? to let them know we are here and we're doing strong. And to the agency folks, I would like to know, what do you think, in a creative sense or in a marketing plan sense, what do brands need to do? So we could probably start with Jyoti.
Yeah, so I think a lot of relevant points in terms of the education aspect in the crypto market, right? And largely when we say crypto, today we are talking mostly trading, I mean, purely in terms of as an asset, buy and sell. We haven't even gone to the extent of what can crypto do. I mean, if DeFi kind of a concept really kicks in, and how long will it take for us to start using it to buy something and things like that. So I think as of today, it is purely in terms of treat it as a asset and buy. Sell, trade is what it goes, and as Darshan was saying, I think analysis and really for the serious traders, then the cohort is different for what you might want to communicate to this kind of customer. Typically, what we see, not just in this market. Anything which is regulated, right? I mean, I'll take a very different example, baby food or something highly regulated. Suddenly got regulated, right? I mean, most advertisers know this, like 10 years, 15 years ago. So the creative agencies and advertising agencies in general do adapt, because at the end of the day, the business has to grow. So you figure a channel or a medium where your message can still be taken to the relevant audience. I remember back in 2019 when we started working, even the advertising regulations today are still like at least allows us to put it out there. But that back then, India, there was no rules and like we couldn't advertise. And so we actually did SEO first, right? Like, I mean, there was no paid advertisement for a good almost like, I think 2018, 19, there's just like search engine optimization to bring in like a lot of audience. And then the paid advertisement kicked in. And so the mediums are, I mean, you'll figure out the mediums. From a communication point of view, as Ramdev was saying, I think like build the right brand, like, because I mean, this is not about like, okay, you get your audience today. I mean, there is so much that will evolve about crypto in the coming years. You do not want to be perceived as, oh, I burned my hands with this particular platform or anything. Think of any of this Paytm or PhonePe. I mean, 2013, who knew India would have UPI where I will pay my auto driver, just with just a electronic digital money, right? And we are just talking 7-8 years right now, right? Like, I mean, fine, 2011 or to now, or whichever way you want to look at it, but in a decade's time, so much can change when it comes to transactions and like how digital assets can be treated. So for most brands, it is important to build that brand as a trustworthy brand. We are talking financial instrument. This is how banks have built their brand. Today, why are despite so much better options available in insurance? Right. I mean, better. I'll put it in a very personal opinion of better. Okay, fine. But we still trust the older systems or financial institutions purely because when it has to deal with anything to do with money or like asset, the trust is the foremost aspect to build as communication. With a foreseeable future of like maybe 10 years, 15 years, however you look at it. So I think most brands have to go with that. At the same time, this is a very new age instrument. There is also a question around celebrity, what kind of celebrity and all. The current trend, I wouldn't say this is the best thing or this is declared to be like working or whichever way, but the current trend is because it's a new age instrument, the appeal is more towards the new age thing. So if you see the kind of celebrities who have been roped in, it's the cool image. It's the I'm the new face of India kind of an image. At the same time, even if you see Matt Damon was taken up for I think we have Ramdev here. So on the Super Bowl ads, and it's like fortune favors the brave, right? That's the whole thing. So it's all about this. Okay, I'm ready to explore. I don't fear. That's the image of the celebrity and the cool or new age is what is taken. But as this market or the ecosystem evolves, as Darshan was saying, it becomes a serious aspect. At that point of time, it will shift towards how, let's say, mutual funds have evolved. Right. And maybe the consortium will also take out mutual fund Sahi Hai campaign came from the association. So maybe BACC will also do something like maybe 5 years down the line, relevant to that, or maybe sooner. Right? I don't know. So I think the communication will evolve with the regulations and also the customers evolving. Yeah.
Thank you, Joseph. Navanil, could you add on it from a creative perspective?
100%. I mean, what is interesting is we are talking about NFT, blockchain, metaverse, crypto, all of this, which is absolutely cutting edge in today's. But I'll tell you the best way to build this new age thing is to actually go back to the past and learn from somebody who did it brilliantly. Very, very completely radically different example I'm going to give. And I feel the best way of brand building is the Baba Ramdev way of brand building, which is going back Ayurveda and many, many years back. Because, what did he do? First 15, 20 years, he just said yoga, 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 yoga. He didn't charge for it. He didn't, he didn't manufacture things. He didn't do anything. He invested on it. He personally invested on something, and then now he's reaped the rewards for it. So for crypto, it's basically the same thing. You have to invest on it. People are talking about trust, and I'm not debating there. But the thing is, do you come onto the stage and say, how does communication work? Do you come onto the stage and say, oh, I'm trustworthy and people trust you? Does it work like that? Or do you do things, that make people believe that, you may be trustworthy? Stimulus and advertising is the same way. Like you don't enter a room and say, I'm funny, and people consider you funny. You crack a joke and then people consider you funny. That's the whole stimulus response. So a very important corollary to trust is what I call expertise. And that needs to be built. It's from that expertise that trust will flow. And that's exactly, and not because we are doing it with CryptoWire. They have a crypto university. They have created something called a Crypto TV, which is a dedicated YouTube channel. The university has courses, which is like from ABCD courses to PhD of courses, aligned with Harvard, MIT, all of those things. So this is the Baba Ramdev. This is the sowing of the seed. This is your investment from a brand and a company point of view, how you come across that in this space, I know what I'm talking about. I know what I'm dealing with. This is an area which I'm an expert on. And if you are able to do that, then chances are people will trust you, So trust will come from credibility and expertise. All of that will come from expertise is what I'm trying to say. And put it in a nutshell, the time right now is, of course, education and empowerment are key. Everybody knows that. But yeah, it is the time to invest on it and come across as that. So when the floodgates open, hopefully 5-6 months later on, people know, these guys told me, these guys held my hand, these guys were with me, these guys made me understand what it is. And depending upon your own level of savviness and all that, for somebody who's very savvy, that is the Harvard kind of course here also. So the PhD, so go to my crypto university, learn it, and that's the best way to build a brand is what I would like to say. Yeah.
Okay. So building expertise is the core takeaway here. Bhagavan, moving on to you guys, what are you doing to keep the audience engaged and keep the community strong?
Sure. So our focus, one is on building the right product, right? So there's nothing better than building a product which people want and people like, right? So we focus more on people who are early in their crypto journey. And one of the features that we built recently is what we call crypto baskets, where you can invest based on a certain theme or a certain idea. Like say you believe in metaverse. So instead of going and finding a particular coin in the metaverse world, you actually invest in the metaverse theme with metaverse basket, which is actually a combination of multiple coins in a certain ratio. And these baskets we create with the help of experts, right? So it's like for people who believe in certain themes, it's a quick start that I can put 1,000 rupees in metaverse because I believe in metaverse, or I believe in DeFi, or I believe in gaming. I think in 10 years gaming is going to be big. So let me invest in gaming as a theme, right? So that helps these early adopters get started quickly and minimize their risk. And a lot of similar things we build with the product, which really catches on to these persona that we are after, right? And we also focus on making these products, our product like social and gamified, right? For example, we allow people to see the portfolio of their friends, right? Or we bring in experts into our product and you can see where they have invested in, right? So that helps people build trust and build that awareness that where should I invest, and they get started, right? We also go beyond our product and have a lot of activities on Twitter or Discord, Telegram, where we answer common queries of people like, say, taxation or how are things evolving, what should they do, and that also helps build trust, and that also brings people. We also have like referral kind of activities in the product, where if you are a good customer, we allow you to refer to other people, right? And generally, people who come through referral are also good customers, right? So generally, like product and community is the key we focus on to bring people, right? Also, in terms of education, how people get educated today has evolved, right? So people today do not want to read blogs or watch 1 hour long webinar, right? People consume content through reels, through memes, right? So our approach is also to taking education to memes, to reels, where as you scroll your TikTok or Instagram, you actually get educated without realizing that you are getting educated, right? And that creates that awareness, that also builds that trust.
That's true. Right. So building trust and building a product in a way that it cannot be skipped is definitely a great takeaway to have. Ramalingam, the same question for you guys. How are you keeping the audiences hooked?
So we slightly operated at different scale today. So as all my fellow panelists have pointed out, we need to do these basics right. Uh, taking from my previous panels, right? Building the right product. Okay. So as he mentioned, a lot of stuff that they are doing, some good work that they have been doing at their end. Something similar we are building. We are providing more opportunities for people. We have different types of audiences. Some people who are focused on trading. Some people are looking after as Darshan pointed out, high net worth. So we have a different segments available, and obviously we can't go ahead with one size fits all, right? So we are building specific products. We are also providing specific content. Okay, so education has various levels. It could be about how do you begin, to moving about trying to understand what are the insights of the market. If you are a pro trader, you need to understand some more elements of the markets that you're planning to enter into. To an investor who is there for a long run, how do I create safer avenues, right? So building those classification structures and stuff on the product is something that we are focusing on. Off the product, we definitely need to drill down a lot more when it comes to going vernacular. Definitely need to drill down more when it comes to physical feet on street kind of activities beyond digital. Because looking at the scale that we operate, for me, the next set of consumers are going to be at a space which is going to be beyond digital for me. So various experiments, various thought processes around that, while we try to scale digital as a channel overall. Having said that, there is a lot of scope of growing revenue from the existing user base as well. So different elements that we are focusing on, and providing different avenues for consumers to engage, but also building products which are beyond the classical trading and investing mindset. So we are building certain B2B products. We are building certain additional stuff from a compliance angle. For us, compliance has been a very key element of our DNA, and ensuring whatever we roll out to the market has to be compliant to existing rules, and perhaps also to some rules that are going to get framed. So learning not just from Indian geography, but learning from various other geographies. So these are various elements that we are working on to provide at the end of the day a safe and simple solution to my user base. Yeah, so that's primarily what we are working.
Fair enough. So guys, before I move on to the next question, we have a few questions from the audience which I'd like to address first. So I'll open this question to anyone in the panel who wants to take it up. Wasim Sayyed asks, what's the impact on marketing? What's the impact on marketing with FB banning crypto ads? Is that the reason crypto companies have to rely heavily on affiliates for the performance? Anyone who would like to take this up?
Sure, I can just take the first dig at it. See, FB or Google channels that are not available are also creating issues from a data perspective. Right, a lot of high intent audiences is something that we are not very close to, so that data deficiency is also can create some issues. And yes, we still have to grow as a business. We still have to market. We have to look at various options. Affiliates at a point in time are fraudulent, so there is a limitation to how much we can scale. But there are various other channels that we are looking at. There are conversations with all these players on finding out ways and means by which we can open up these channels for everyone. But yeah, that's a long-term journey in any case.
Yeah, I will like to add a bit more. So Facebook doesn't allow you to advertise a exchange or a coin or a direct crypto product, but it does allow you to advertise a educational product or a workshop, or if you're doing something like that. So a lot of crypto companies, including us, have explored the way of indirect advertising, where you try to bring people to a educational platform first, and where they build that trust, they learn about it, and then further they once they have built trust with your brand, they go on and try out your product. So it's not that efficient or not that optimized, but still, if you want to use Facebook or Google as a channel, this still works, where you can you have a middle layer where you bring people to a content platform where it's more about building that trust. It's about engaging them before they try your product.
Thank you, Bhagavan.
I'll just add on, as I said, inventory goes sparse, and Google, Meta are massive inventories. Both, as Bhagavan was saying, like there are some exceptions to content on Meta at least. So that leaves us with like Telegram, Twitter, and many other, but the inventories don't add up. The amount of reach that you can have with many of the other platforms don't necessarily add up. So yeah, affiliates, I mean, because there is a need to grow, then you work with lower funnels on affiliates and make it happen. Yeah, that's the source. Yeah.
Thank you, Jyotir. Our next question from audience is a rather fun one. Aditi Gupta asks us why many celebs are being used for crypto brands. Which celebrity, in your opinion, is the best to represent cryptocurrency? I think we can get hypothetical and think that we have no budget and just, share your opinion in terms of who do you think would be the best celebrity. I think I would like to open this question to all of you guys.
I think I did answer it from an agency point of view, like because when agency scouts for celebs, right, it's for an image that associates with the brand. So I do think that it will, that image itself will shift. The image that you would want for crypto will change. As of today, it's new age, cool, and ready for the new future and things like that. But it will shift. Yeah.
Can I come in? Yeah. For me, yes, one is the imagery part. For me, if it's this space, this space demands somebody who knows what he's doing, he or she is doing, somebody who's knowledgeable, who does his homework, who's rock solid on that, chooses wisely, and I'm sure when I'm saying this also, some person's my image is coming to your mind, who absolutely is in that sense, to me, Amir Khan is a great fit for this. Somebody who doesn't just do anything, he chooses carefully, he does his homework, he's a thorough guy who believes in preparation, meticulous preparation, not just chance gamble, le liya, kar liya, and also hugely bankable, keeps keeping up one hit upon the other, which are blockbusters. So somebody who can depend on, count on, reliable, trustworthy, all of this, plus the fact that he does his homework, he does it with meticulous perfection. Whatever he gets into it full depth. There is complete knowledge and understanding. So for me, I think while he may be old or whatever, to me, he's a great fit for this, personally.
Yeah, I think he is representing PhonePe, which is also a new age brand. So the fit has been working, I think. Darshan, who would be your choice?
No cricketer, nobody from Bollywood. We're building a different brand. It would be somebody from the financial domain. We have a few ideal candidates, but it would not be anybody in the mainstream because we don't feel it represents our values.
Amartya Sen will be nice. And I'm just kidding. Yeah.
So I have a different take on it. So as I think previously Navanil gave the example of Baba Ramdev as a perfect person to do a business and start a business that he is doing, right? So similarly, I think in the crypto space where it's about building trust and having that domain expertise, I feel the respective founders can be the celebrities for their brand, right? So if we look at the broader crypto ecosystem, like say Ethereum, Vitalik, or even Bitcoin, the anonymous Satoshi, I mean, they are the brand, they represent their coins and their brands, right? And they have like large following, right? So it might be a slow thing, but I feel the founders know their product best. They know their company best. They know their users best. So it might take time, but I think eventually they will be the best celebrities to represent their brands and their missions in the crypto space.
Yes, that makes sense.
I think the only person truly educated or rather experienced in talking about this is Ramalingam. So Ramalingam, go for it.
Yes, we have tried a lot of people, including Mr. Bachchan. But hypothetically speaking, Anil Diyar, and just to make the mood a bit lighter, Mr. Modi would be the right person right today to endorse this entire piece as a celebrity. Having said that, the idea of a celeb here is also from an angle. So whether you are buying the celebs persona or whether you're buying the celebs audience, and depending on what kind of activities you are planning, you can go ahead and decide. Specifically for crypto today, we definitely need someone who can explain things in a much simpler manner and can open conversations, because there is a lot of confusion already out there. So any celeb that is able to do that, be it Amir Khan, be it founders, be it financial celebs, I think that's the area that we should look out. For us, Mr. Bachchan was something that we felt was the number one choice. However, he needed some time. So we then went to the other phase, which is Mr. Ayushmann Khurrana. So we have tried these things out. As the markets evolve, the choices will also evolve, and depending on the business that you are doing or the brand that you're building, you can go ahead and select the people.
I just want to interrupt Mr. Ramalingam, and that's great because I honestly did not know you used Ayushmann Khurrana. But in my mind, when I said about Amir Khan, I was thinking if I had to choose from today's a slightly younger fit, swear on God, that happened in my mind just 5 minutes back without knowing whom you used. the name that popped up was his. So I guess there was been some decent amount. I mean, somewhere a meeting of kind of mind or the right kind of thinking in that choice. Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, just a coincidence. Yeah.
Thanks.
Ramalingam, if I may ask a follow-up, how has it, helped? How has it worked for the brand having Mr. Khurana on board?
It gave me a huge audience, right? So as I said earlier, we choose a celeb either for the audience or the image. With Mr. Khurana, we were getting a mix of both. Also, when you're going for a celeb, you also need to have a very strong outreach program, right? The celeb in itself is an expensive creative element of your campaign, and you need to have a huge distribution strategy available. So a combination of both. For us, it opened up a lot of conversations. It gave us an entry into a newer audience set. Female audiences as well were starting up noticing things. While we did get Mr. Khurana, we also did a lot of other distribution plays. Like, for example, we did Big Boss, right? We did the T20 World Cup on TV. We also did IPL on Hotstar. So all these avenues helped us distribute it well and reach to a particular audience. What it helped us is create familiarity. It helped us open doors. And I think the campaign, when we ran that entire campaign for the period of 2-3 months till December, we saw a huge uptake overall in the number of people considering us, as well as people actually coming and investing through us. So it definitely did help us in the long run.
Thank you. Thank you, guys. So I do have a lot more questions, but unfortunately, we have reached the time limit. There are a couple of other user questions as well, which I will be passing on to you guys, and probably you could answer it offline or on our social media handles. Thank you once again for the amazing session and the amazing insights. It was indeed a pleasure to have you all here today.
Thank you so much, Saloni. And apologies.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks a lot.
Thanks, everyone.
Oh, bye-bye. Moving on to our next session for the day, which is how to create a fintech marketing blueprint for a new age brand and consumers. I'd like to invite on our virtual stage Shreyas Achar, Senior Director, Marketing, Plum Insurance, Raj Karkara, COO ZepPay, Kunal Bhardwaj, Senior Director, Marketing, Upstocks, Mohit Joshi, CEO, Havas Media Group, Soumya Iyer, Founder and CEO, TVO Digital. Hi guys, it is a pleasure to have you with us today.
Hi Saloni, how are you?
Hi, good afternoon.
Hi. So I see that everyone's joined and we are a little behind schedule. So I'll quickly actually get to the first question. And, to give our viewers a context, fintech brands, they consist of a lot of things, right? It might be something like a cred, or it might be something like a Upstocks, or something like a PhonePe, right? But all of these, a lot of brands have been doing these amazing big budget campaigns with a lot of yesteryear stars, and a lot has been spoken about these campaigns in the last year and a half. But on the ground level, how do you think these campaigns are performing? Probably we could start with Mohit.
Thanks, Saloni. So I think every campaign has a very specific objective, and I'm sure the campaigns are performing to the objectives. At least the brands that we handle a lot of fintechs ourselves, and the objective over there is clearly return on investment. And today, nobody is looking at just building a brand. Every marketeer, and especially so the new age marketeers, they want to spend their dollars and ensure that there is a proper return that comes out of it in terms of key deliverables like an app download or new consumers or whatever it could be. So I think the campaigns are doing well. BFSI used to be a very serious category, and but I think thanks to the new age brands, even the fear factor has been comicized, if I could call it, with your Yamraj of Policy Bazaar giving you a serious gyan on why you should be having a term insurance. So I think the brands have been doing a lot of hard work around educating the consumers. And in my view, at a personal level, I have started investing in crypto because of CoinSwitch Kuber and Coin DCX, the way they communicated, the ease of investment. So I think they're doing their job. The challenges are huge because they're competing with the larger financial ecosystem, but I think they're doing a fair job.
Thank you. Kunal, from a brand point of view, what do you think about these campaigns?
So did you ask me, right?
Yeah.
Okay. See, I think it all depends on what segment of BFSI a brand is operating in. I mean, in our case, we are a segment that was, like I said, virtually unknown about 2 years back. Nobody knew this segment. Online trading and everything was virtually non-existent. So for us, I think our biggest challenge was to, put up our hand and be known that this corner of the office has electricity and ACs, so people come and look at us. I think once we did that, as Mohit really pointed out, the evolution of marketing, especially in this segment, it can't be a very long drawn out process. Sorry, am I audible? Because I think everything's
yeah.
Cool. I think from creating awareness and to delivering on business metrics has been a very short, very blitzkrieg sort of a journey for us. But wanted to add that just get this segment, especially, well, it's a non-indulgent segment. This is a very high focus segment for the consumers because their hard-earned dollar is coming in. It's also not a segment which remember back in the days, the LTV of BFSI used to be very long. Once you bought, let's say, an insurance from a LIC, that's it, your kids' generations. Here, the LTV is like on a daily basis, 80% churn rate most apps are seeing right now. So apart from creating a brand story, there is a lot of other stuff in the peripheral that needs to be done. So number one, technology. I mean, I think that's the best and the most important thing. So personalization, ease of use, keeping them comfortable in the app ecosystem. That's one big thing. Content is another big thing. So apart from just a glitzy brand story, I think there's a lot of stuff in the back end and the background that is happening, and that's pretty much what the entire gamut is. Yeah.
So there's a lot more stuff in the periphery. Definitely. Soumya, if I may ask you the same question.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, no, I guess I sort of second a lot of what Kunal said, right? At level one, if you ask what is the impact that some of these campaigns are creating, what do you think is really sort of coming out of some of these campaigns that we are seeing across media today? One thing is, sometimes I feel, especially for a complex, for a set of complex products, which now fintech is serving, it's enough to create intrigue. You need to create that intrigue because the education itself sometimes can take a long time, so especially when you want to reach the masses. So it's important to create that intrigue and have the pull come in. Once the person knows or has heard about you, at interesting places in interesting ways, he will come and look for you. He or she will come and look for you. And when they come and look for you, it is important, for a marketer to understand where is he likely to come and look for you. And what is the content or education ecosystem you have in place for you to take that opportunity and really educate them about a brand or product, right? Which is where that periphery and that hard work really comes in, because you need to know which are the segments of people you're talking to. Each person is likely to be at a different stage of their awareness and understanding of the product that you're serving, which is where, as cliched as it might sound, content marketing becomes so important, or just developing extremely in-depth, valuable content becomes important. We speak about SEO, and it most likely is going to go and search for you. And what is the content that gets thrown up when he is looking for you becomes important. So that peripheral work beyond after creating that intrigue is the most important part of, the marketing journey as far as fintech brands are concerned. So yeah, that's my view.
Thank you, Soumya. Raj, building up on what Soumya and Kunal have said, while I would want your opinion on these kind of campaigns, and also from Zepay's point of view, what is it that you guys are doing?
Saloni, thank you so much for having me on the panel first off. Really excited to be here with everyone. We have taken a very interesting approach, right? So first off, we are lucky to work with a lot of really good partners in the space. But there's also been a lot of introspection that we have done. And I think as Soumya rightly pointed out, right, it's not just about the ad that is being shown on a television or a digital screen somewhere for 15, 30 seconds. It's the whole user journey, the whole experience that the consumers going to, how are they seeing you on television or a computer? How are they going and searching for you? Are they searching for you on a website or on the app store? Are those channels optimized or not, right? So I think all of these things play in sync together. But the introspection aspect really for us has been, understanding our user journey, understanding our entire funnel in a lot more detail than I think quite a few brands that I know of do. And really optimizing the lifetime value, right? So I think Kunal talked about it briefly. If you as a marketer, especially in today's digital world, if you don't understand the CLV or the LTV metrics and understand what your acquisition cost is going to be and how it's going to affect your long-term, ROI or return on ad spend, you're not really doing yourself justice, right? So ROAS is a calculation not just on how much you're spending directly, but also the indirect aspect of it and the long-term, 18, 24-month calculations that you get from the customer acquisition that you did or the retention life cycle. So I think all of these things come together. That is where we are focused. And, I think one key point that I think the last panel, I was watching the last panel, and of course, some of you have echoed this. Education is key in this space, right? Fintech is the evolution of things that we have done traditionally. Investing in crypto is, if you look at it, not much different than investing in stocks, right? It is, you're buying into a protocol, in this case, a protocol, in previous stocks case, it was buying into a company. You need to have fundamentals, right? And I think people forget that it is the fundamental that makes the protocol or the company, not just the hype around it, right? So you can have hype brands, brands or companies, but they will die out sooner rather than later, right? So I think understanding and education is a key part of this whole process from my perspective. And that's what Zepay is focusing on with the new campaigns.
Great. So fundamentals and understanding. Shreyas, if I may tweak the question a bit for you. So, while we're talking about these big budget campaigns, from an insurance brand point of view, how much do you think these kind of campaigns would work? And even for Plum Insurance, what direction are you guys going in?
I think the answer would really depend on who you're asking within the insurance space. And Aditya Birla is going to do something drastically different. LIC, thanks to their IPO, had taken out quarter pages on ET for the last entire month, right? So everyone's got their own approach to brand. So I'd worry about holding ourselves only to the industry that way. But we are early, right? We're still pretty young as a team. So I'm just having fun, right? As a team, we're just having fun. We're just trying to figure out what we stand for, who we are as a brand. I think our biggest investment right now is having those people on board in the team who, who scream Plum, right? Who stand for an empathetic wellness, employee wellness brand like we are. So everything from my Zoom background to everything we say on social, the kind of swag our office, everything is a part of our brand campaign. So I don't think it's divorced into or segmented into necessarily these periodic campaigns for us. It's an always on marketing function. It also comes from the fact that insurance doesn't always lead to instant gratification, right? It's somebody who's in the market, somebody who sees a brand campaign of ours right now might not be in a position to buy because of the annual renewal cycles. So we just want to keep them engaged. We just want to make sure that we are seen as the authoritative thought leader, the empathetic partner to their journey. And that's a very constant form of messaging that I think we're borrowing from FMCG brands at this point. We have to, one of the core principles that we talk about in our induction process also is we are doing everything that traditional insurance brands wouldn't do, or quite the opposite, really.
Great, that's great insight, Shiv. Thank you. My next question for the panel is around, it is probably one of the most talked about things in across industries, and that is targeting the youth, the millennial and the Gen Z. But for BFSI, especially for fintech, it's become more relevant because these are the audiences who understand, the role of technology in finance. Plus, I think millennials are now crossing that age where they're reaching taxable income, and now they're taking more interest into the whole fintech space. What are the best practices to genuinely reach this target audience, the quick moving audience? Kunal, if we could start with you.
I feel like the guy who's sitting at the front bench. But okay, so look, great question. And millennials are who we talk to on a daily basis. And these are this category is which is going to drive not just our business, but I think every other business out there. And so there is a universal language that I think every brand is trying to speak to, with the millennials. And that is, I think, very simply put, ease of use. Look at the challenges that we have, right? They have one mobile phone. Every brand is now an app brand. Everybody is fighting for that 2 GB of space or 8 GB of space, depending on how rich your parents are. All of them are promising the world, be it a BFSI brand, be it a FMCG brand, be it a e-com brand. Everybody's promising these guys the world. And looking at the kind of time spent on apps and time spent on technology, which is shrinking daily, ease of use, easy discoverability, personalization, are things that we as a brand are working on. And these are the things that are going to crack the future when it comes to any segment. Now, breaking it down to our segment, look, we look at everything in a 3-dimensional way. It's age, it's desire, and it's understanding of the segment. Okay. Now, within this 3-dimensional space, where does this guy fit in? How best can we cater to what he needs day 1 versus what he needs day 50? Is all different. So as a brand and as marketers, as product companies, as tech companies, we need to be on our toes to deliver to him a message which is relevant to him, not just on day 1, but on 50, on 100 and 500 to stay relevant. I hope that.
Yeah, that's it. Thank you, Kunal. Soumya, what would you say on this? You're on mute, Soumya.
I think one of the foremost trends that we would have seen across, in order to market to millennials, also because we're expecting them to be the early adopters and create that sort of threshold in terms of adoption, is the intersection of pop culture, that's relevant to, the younger crowd in marketing and communication and what you're doing on social. But I think we should also be mindful of 2 things, right? One is, of course, obviously we're trying to get some of the younger audiences on board quickly and get the numbers going. But it's going to be a matter of time, before we sort of move on to some of the older generations as well. And that sort of has become, after COVID, like look at some of the clients like PhonePe, for example, you're talking about adoption really across segments with digital wallets. The other thing to be mindful of is that when we speak about marketing to millennials, we tend to sort of say urban, and I think the real power of marketing fintech would be to go beyond urban and tier 1, and really be able to drill down to tier 2, tier 3, still talk to millennials because they're likely to be early adopters in their language and in the way they would like to hear from you, and the way you would want to communicate your sort of value proposition to them. So I think the game changer that fintech will bring in from a marketing standpoint is if we are able to speak to not just millennials from the urban context, but also drill down to Bharat, as we call it.
Yeah. Actually, you're building on that insight, Soumya. Mohit, if I may to ask you, dealing with, reaching out to youth, and how do you think vernacular can become a part of the media plan?
Yeah, so vernacular for us when we speak to Bharat is very, very core to our communication, and simple stuff like we do so much of testing on engagement, on interaction, on the intimacy that some of our content creates, and if we use vernacular and we're able to target it right, we'll see our engagement spike. Okay, and also the use of keeping it casual, like doing an English plus vernacular sort of, because there's obviously an aspiration value that also exists among the smaller towns in India. So vernacular, one is, of course, see the channels that are available to you when it comes to vernacular. So we are seeing how can it become a part of the media plan. I think instead of looking at the publisher or the platform that's available to you, you look at targeting. Right. So whether you're talking about Facebook, Instagram, Google allow you to target, one. Two, talk about, WhatsApp, Telegram, so on and so forth, chatbots, again, allow you to target. There is seriously a dearth of real platforms, that vernacular is reaching out to, other than, let us say, usual suspects like, your publishing guys, but then one huge, insight, or one of our biggest learnings when we have gone about targeting Bharat is concerned is the work that we've been able to do with guys like Josh, Share Chat, and the traction that it has brought us in terms of adoption with some of these brands. So yeah, that's one big call out I want to do with respect to reaching out to smaller towns.
Thank you, Soumya. Mohit, if I may ask you the same question.
So, Saloni, I'll respond to the larger question that you had initially, and I think it's not just the millennials, but even the Gen Zs which are important for these brands.
Yeah.
I have a lot of Gen Zs in my office who are interacting with all the brands and in this category. And when we have done a lot of assessment of the Gen Zs, because they are even a little more different from the millennials, and we realized that for them purpose is absolutely important, purpose that the brand has. And this sense of purpose, or this sense of meaningfulness, as we call it in the Havas language, where they try to evaluate not just the functional benefit of a brand, but also the personal benefits and the collective benefits of a brand, whether the brand is doing something for the society at large. And those are the things that are important for a communication to them. When we say that the brand has a purposeful perspective, that appeals to them far more. Transparency is critical for them. The brand has to be absolutely transparent. And as far as your question on vernaculars is concerned, it's obvious that the way these brands are penetrating the smaller cities and Bharat, as Soumya just mentioned, the relevance of the local language, the local dialect, the local influencers is becoming so much more important. And influencers are important over here. Influencers who are absolutely transparent. It's not, and they don't want to look at the ads as keenly as they would want to hear their own peers talking about the brand and telling them that this brand is good. So I think those are the elements that are critical when you talk to the Gen Zs and the millennials per se.
So transparency and purpose are a great takeaway over here. And building on that insight, Shreyas, if you could share a little bit from Plum's point of view, what are you guys doing to reach out, to this demographic?
Sorry. See, we're not necessarily a millennial or a Gen Z focused brand because we are in group health insurance. So our primary market tends to be people who are people leaders, right? Like HR professionals or young business owners, but even across the spectrum, right? So the millennials are actually who we like to think of, or they represent the employees for the most part for us. So it's a B2E2B marketing. So we're trying to turn employees into advocates, go talk to their HRs, go talk to their business leaders. So for them, insurance, unfortunately, has largely been a black box, right? It's something that your uncle comes one day and forces you into buying, because you started earning, right? Unfortunately, insurance has been that kind of a black box. So we're trying to build that level of transparency, and we've got a good few peers in the industry now. Folks like Ditto are doing a spectacular job there of bringing transparency and clarity and purpose to this audience on the retail side. But we want them to kind of take that and go talk to their employers also about it, saying, hey, why isn't this aspect of maternity covered under the insurance that you provided, right? And or why are LGBTQ partners not supported? And that's the level of conversation we'd like for them to champion. So we're at any given time, we're having two different conversations. Think of a diaper brand, right? Like the parent is the buyer and the child is the user. For us, the end customers have to advocate and go to their managers and tell them that, hey, we want more. Plum says we should get more, right? And that's been our large go-to-market.
Thank you, Shiv. Raj, if I need to ask you, I were to ask you the same question from a ZP perspective, and also like not just reaching out to the youth, but also from a product awareness and product education point of view, what is it that you guys are doing?
So I think, very interesting points. The millennial and, Gen Z, if I focus specifically on the Gen Z, a very fickle customer, right? Short attention spans, incredible amounts of choice in everything that they're doing right now. I really resonate with Mohit's statement about, having a purpose. I think that's super critical, I think, at this point. If we go back one step, though, if we, look at millennials, if I consider myself and some Gen Xers, some parts of Gen X, I think we were driven more by utility, right? Especially in the digital space. Look at the FANGs. How much advertising have the FANGs really done? Not that much, It was good product, providing a utility in the space, and therefore that led to adoption, which led to insane amount of, growth for these companies, right? So, and then you come to this new world order, which is, again, targeting the newer generation. It is, again, they have an insane amount of choice. So having purpose and having a really, really strong product, I think that is, again, super important at this point, because I think the choice sets that these consumers have are immense. They can get, value anywhere. What they need is, having a purpose, and why do they want to transact with you? I think, so I guess for brands, I think it is very important to answer that question, right? What is your purpose? Is it clean water? Is it some other building schools? Is it whatever it might be, right? I think these are all just high level things. But again, one thing that we focused on was, everyone's selling crypto. Great, fantastic. But why should the user stick with us? And that led us to some ideation around a product where we started offering them returns on just all of their holdings. So I think that was a differentiator that we discovered along the way. And we utilized that to, to good success from a consumer base. They reacted to it really well. So having purpose is super critical. But more so than anything else, if you're unable to surface what the consumer is looking for in real time, there is no brand loyalty. Today, there is no brand loyalty. It is loyalty to what I want, he or she wants, as opposed to saying this is the only option in the market, right? So it's not driven by utility. It is certainly purpose driven, but also having great experiences, great product, and of course, great findability.
Thank you, Raj. So actually this leads me to my next question. Because, these fintech brands are so widely, they target a wider demographic, and, a lot of platforms on which we market are also figuring out how to accommodate them best, right? So in this scenario, what are some of the challenges that, as a brand you guys are facing? Maybe something technical or on a general level. I think I'll start with shares this time.
Yeah, no, I wish my product did more things, right? I could go and market everything under the sun and to Bharat and to everyone else, but there is pace, there's regulation, there's so many things that we need to take into account. We are bound by constraints, regulation, limitations, what have you. But no real challenge as such, to be honest. I don't foresee us running into these muddy waters with at least something like insurance. But where I do think we'd like to do more of, and some part that I don't think we've really cracked, right, is we've got some ambitious goals, and how best to get there, how to get ubiquity in an otherwise short attention span market, how to relate to a tier one audience, but also take it to Bharat without diluting our ethos one way or another. So I think it stems from a fundamental business question that I need to answer first. And the second part for me is how we are in a remarkably commodified and commoditized space, right? Like it's super competitive. So I need to make sure that at all times, if one of my competitor is in a meeting room with a prospect, somebody should ask, why not Plum, right? That's the state I'd like to get to. And how to reach that level of ubiquity, I think all of us are fighting for the same piece of the pie. So it's going to be interesting. I look forward to it.
Thank you, Shreya. Viraj, from a same question, what are the challenges that you guys are facing in this domain?
I think there's not really technical challenges that I would like to point out over here. Of course, the day-to-day work continues, not a big deal. I think the biggest challenge, again, like I pointed out, is consumers have a lot of choice now. And then you've got a lot of brands vying for the same piece of pie, and then everyone's putting out their own message, right? In some cases, clearing the water, some cases, muddying the water. How do you navigate that and really stand out is, I think, the challenge that we have, had to navigate through. Again, spending money is easy, right? Turning on advertising is fantastic. But again, bringing all of this together, right? Advertising is just step one. Throwing an ad up with a celeb or non-celeb or no celebs, that's not the hard part, right? But tying it back to all of the channels and how they operate, and really having a unifying message, which is again purposeful and drives the consumer to the action that you want them to take. That is a challenging journey in itself, right? So I think as individuals and brands, all of us would like to take that journey, and I've had the honor of doing that. So I think it's been a fun challenge for us to solve for, right? So that is what is the exciting part. Like you go from easy hair, to just do it. All of these things, great, but you're playing with people's money, right? These are real people putting faith and their monetary instruments and their futures, the financial futures into your hands. It is a big, responsibility, and I think, not demeaning it by any means. I think that is a challenge in itself. And every day, all of us, I'm sure here, work with the purpose that we need to keep the trust that the consumer has placed in us, right? I think the minute you lose trust, you're dead. You're dead in the water at that point. So that is the challenge that we all have.
So that's just very integral. Kunal, from a brand perspective, if you could share some insight on that.
Sure. I think for us, one of the biggest challenges, which I think we successfully did manage to crack, was define what, as Soumya was talking about, what Bharat means. There is a tendency for a lot of, and with no disrespect to anybody, boardroom marketers to quantify Bharat with Gaon, which it isn't. So therefore, if what we did was we made sure that our communication, in whatever way it's going out, is equally receivable and understood, and feels like home for somebody who's sitting in Delhi and somebody who's sitting in Jodhpur and somebody who's sitting in Bhopal and Indore, all of those areas as well. I think that's something that we successfully managed to crack at our first campaign, and that is when the bigger challenges started. I don't know if you guys know that IPL 1, when we launched with Start Karke Dekho, I think within 15-20 days, some brands just copied us frame by frame. Some brands copied us as our message, and so on and so forth. So that was an interesting period because I had never had that sort of things happen to me as a marketer, where I was speaking to people in ASCII and saying, "Dekho ye kya ho raha hai?" But that's where this thing. So of course, one, defining what Bharat is a challenge. On a day-to-day basis, I think if as a wish list, if we could listen to each and every customer's insight very, very clearly, and therefore would, as a category, lead us to give them highly personalized solutions and messages, I think that would be nirvana for us. Which again, like a lot of people mentioned in this panel, these categories and these consumers, whether it's a millennial or a Gen Z or whoever for that matter, even my parents for that matter, download and delete apps on a daily basis, right? Blinkit doesn't deliver in 10 minutes, 15 minutes. My mom's like, "Chalo chodo, kuch aur mangate hain." So I think promise of product, quality of product, technology, ease of use, simplicity, as well as personalization. And personalization, I will give it 10 out of 10 because that's really, 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 really important. Is what a daily challenge for us is. I hope that answers.
Yeah, it does. Thank you, Kunal. Mohit, moving on to you, you guys have seen a couple of fintech brands from our agency, right? So what are the briefs or what are the challenges that they come to you guys with as an agency, like, for a plan?
So I think the biggest challenge that we have is for every brand is how do you retain the relevance in the consumer's mind. We spoke about it. Everybody spoke about the fact that there's so many Me Too brands happening in the same category. The consumer is distracted. There's so many different touch points that he or she is interacting with. And you need to be relevant. Unless you are relevant, you will not go to the next level of consumption. How do you ensure that that relevance is retained? And how do you create, I spoke about the fact that you need to have a purposeful or a meaningful intent. Now that needs to be very transparently communicated to the consumers. You can't say that I am a purposeful brand, but your communication is saying something else. So I think those are the two large challenges that I personally face whenever, and that's nothing to do with just fintech, but even otherwise brands at large. In today's day and age, these are the two critical challenges that we face as their media partners.
Okay, that helps, Mohit. Samya, same question to you from our agency perspective.
Yeah. I'm going to have quite a few challenges to talk about here since we handle so many of these brands in different categories. There's a common theme that goes across. See, one is that in a highly commoditized market where everybody's trying to sell you something, the importance of building a singular brand narrative, especially on digital. As digital first brands, you have the tendency to sort of obviously spend more and be more visible on digital. And the very sharp sort of focus that is required in building that digital first brand narrative, I feel we've got to do a lot more work in that direction, especially since we speak to a spectrum of people. There's always this gray area about who should I look like, be like when I'm speaking, how do I create that distinction, right? So at a top level, I think everybody's talking about it, but really to go in depth in a way that consistently over a few years, you're able to create that distinct brand narrative, especially, given the fairly complex nature of digital channels, different platforms, different content formats, so on and so forth. Creating that singular brand narrative is one challenge that I think we need to look at in a way that we create more focus there. That's one. Two is, I think more than any other category, as fintech, trustworthiness, credibility, transparency is of prime importance. Now, one of the ways in which, we tend to drive all of these agenda points is to have a credible name, credible face, come and talk about you. So, influencers, this is an influencer economy to a certain extent, right? The content creator is really the king in today's time and age. But there's a flip side to it as well. The flip side is that if transparency, trustworthiness is what you're what you're aiming to create, you have no control over what the influencer is doing outside of just engaging with your brand. Right. So, so what is the impact that it leaves you with as a brand is sort of something that we need to delve into. So this is another sort of challenge that we are working on and figuring out, what's the right way to go about this. The one, thing that keeps coming to me is, content creator is more important than an influencer. Okay, जो मैं मेरे feeds पे या stories पे या reels पे देखती हूँ, it should really come from somebody I know. So how do you really orchestrate a campaign in a way that really my next door neighbor is talking about me, and that sort of is resonating with me, right? So it's a tall ask, but if you're able to achieve that as a brand, I think you're home. You don't need influencers, right? So that distinction between a content creator who's talking about you and an influencer needs to be very clear in our head. The third thing, is that जब creative की बात करते हैं, when we speak about brand campaigns, creative, there is a abnormal focus on the top of the funnel creative work. Okay, of course there is, you need to be creative, you need to arrest attention, you need to create intrigue, वो सब तो है ही. But as a fintech brand, आपका KPI होता है downloads लेके आना है, bottom of the funnel पे focus चाहिए होता है, right? So the focus that one needs to create in terms of the bottom of the funnel creative work, right, sometimes gets missed in this whole game. So much so that at the cost of sounding like we're marketing something from DVO, डिजाइन फॉर सो तीन साल के कैंपेन्स हमने स्टडी किए सिर्फ बॉटम ऑफ द फनल कैंपेन्स को स्टडी करने के लिए, और देखा कि सबसे ज्यादा CTR कहाँ आ रहा है, किस तरह के फॉर्मेट में आ रहा है, किस तरह के क्रिएटिव में आ रहा है, इन अ वे दैट परफॉर्मेंस क्रिएटिव्स पे एक एबनॉर्मल फोकस किया जाए, बिकॉज अल्टीमेटली योर linear channel of acquisition is digital as a digital first brand, right? So obviously, that sort of is the other big piece that I feel we need to look at. Of course, focus on that top of the funnel, and then bottom of the funnel को आप जब creative में डालते हो तो वो transactional हो जाता है. It can't become transactional. That's where your guy is actually buying into you. And last is, I feel like the the peripheral aspects that Kunal mentioned about when we started speaking, as in marketing and even as a partner, I think I feel like we as agency partners, or marketing partners, want or should get a lot more involved in the periphery, right? That's where we can actually add true value. बड़े campaigns, अच्छे campaigns, creative campaigns कर लेंगे, but हमें रियल बिजनेस इंपैक्ट और वैल्यू लाने के लिए और अंदर डीपर जाना ही है, right? So this is the other piece, which is where retention comes in, which is where data comes in, right? Which is where understanding the audience cohorts comes in. So I think those are the four sort of areas in which I feel we should be focusing a lot more on.
That's a great insight here, bottom of the funnel, definitely. Actually we are unfortunately out of time, but before I wrap up, I just want to do like one quick rapid fire, because we've seen so many fintech campaigns of late. Which has been your favorite fintech campaign seen in the last few years? If you could just start off the bat, you could start with Raj.
So my campaign, of course, I'll talk about Zepe's campaign, but also Coinbase's campaign in the Super Bowl. That was that broke Coinbase, right? So super successful, just having a QR code, and that drove millions of visits. That's a marketer's dream come true right there.
Thank you, Raj. Shreyas, which would be your favorite campaign?
But from all the ones that we've been doing, I kid. Honestly, I love some of the work that folks at Upstocks and Zepe, these folks have been doing. But I come from the B2B world. I think, we need to have a lot more, we're playing with far fewer psychographic components, right? There's a lot more about cost and revenue on an everyday basis. My former employers, where I used to be product marketing, Razorpay is doing a good job, I think. So props to them.
Thanks, Shreyas. Soumya, which would be yours?
I think I'll speak about two of them. One is I genuinely believe that a good campaign is a campaign that beyond just shouting about the benefits or the ad campaign should add real value. So one campaign, again, it's our campaign which we did, which is called 3EO for PhonePe, where the idea was to really bring women entrepreneurs through a campaign on the platform so that they get access to millions and millions of customers, right? So this was, I think, a great way of showing the value of the platform itself. And I think what Zepe is doing now as well is very, very interesting, which is Crypto Mein Pro, because they have a very sharp focus on, what they're saying that, we may not know about anything else, but we know about crypto and therefore you should come to us, which is required right now. Since there is this confusion about crypto as a space, you need to go to somebody who has got the right knowledge. So I think those two.
Thanks, Soumya. Mohit, which one would be your favorite campaign?
It'll be difficult to say one campaign because there are many of them which you would remember. So one is, of course, I said CoinSwitch Kuber, the campaign of the Gully Boy campaign around that whole thing of how easy it is to invest in crypto. I think that was a very straightforward, simple campaign. And I like the work that Cred is doing. While there are always two facets of the work that they have been doing, but I think they have done some phenomenal work.
They create intrigue for sure.
Absolutely, it created huge intrigue, and I mean, look at the valuation of that organization in such a short time. So it's difficult to say which brand work was good, but I think these are the two that stay with me as top of mind.
Thank you, Mohit. Kunal, same question.
Well, if you're talking about efficacy of communications, then I think a brand which entered a market which nobody knew about, and instead of fighting for space, decided to expand the market, which was Upstocks. Our first campaign was start karke dekho. We were talking about expanding the market and not talking about taking customers out from Grow or whoever. And the evolution in 1 year, where we are now, wherein we said, okay, what happens post you have started, which is once you buy stocks, you become a part owner of the company. So the new campaign, which is be your own boss or own India ki top companies ko kaam pe lagao. I think that's talking directly to the aspirations of the young India. Creatively, yes, I think that one Rahul Dravid campaign. Now what they're doing is I'm at a loss of words, because if they think they're targeting those 80s commercials, Nirma and everything are appealing to people like us, I don't think so, because those commercials are meant for my parents. So there is zero resonance there. But the Rahul Dravid one was kick-ass, and especially and the other one as well, where it was those bowlers, Srikanth, Srinath, and Prasad, and all of those. It was fun to see those guys back. So yeah.
Thank you so much, Kunal. And I think with this, we wrap up this session. Thank you so much, guys, for joining us today. It's been a really fun session and really insightful. From now, we'd like to move on to our next session. But before that, thank you once again, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody.
Bye-bye. Bye. Thank you, our viewers, for staying tuned in so far. And now we move on to the final session of the day, which is Finfluencers, social media finance gurus, and their role in a BFSI marketing plan. For the session, I would like to invite on stage Ajinkya Kulkarni, co-founder Wind Wealth, Ayush Shukla, founder Finet Media, Sharan Hegde, finance influencer, Anushka Rathod, finance influencer, Manisha Dokania, head marketing Edelweiss Mutual Fund, and Hitesh Rajwani, founder and CEO Social Samosa Network, who will also be moderating the session.
Hi guys.
Hi guys, welcome.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hi Saloni, how are you?
Good, Ayush, how are you?
Wonderful, yeah, thanks.
Great. So we have Hitesh here. Over to you, Hitesh.
Thank you, Saloni. Thank you for the introduction, and welcome Ayush, Anushka, Manisha, Sharan. I think was.
Hi Hitesh.
Hi
Hitesh. Hi everyone.
How are you guys doing?
Very well.
Thank you for joining us on a Thursday afternoon, which is even a long weekend ahead. I mean, and even the audiences who are viewing us on LinkedIn as well as Zoom, I think hats off to you guys for sticking around for the last 3 hours or so. Sharan, can you turn on your camera? I think we can't see you. And I think Ajinkya is yet to join. So
just give me a second. I'm just fixing an issue.
Okay. So in the meantime, I think we could have some introduction from you guys itself, and the audiences. I'll do a quick poll with you guys. Have you heard of the term influencer marketing before, or is this something new? You could just put a thumbs up if you've heard about it before, and just say no if you haven't heard about it. On LinkedIn as well, you could do the same. And do you guys in your daily parlance, Ayush, Anushka, Manisha, you guys use the term influencer marketing, or it's influencer marketing still?
I think recently we've started. Just recently, I think finfluencer, the terms come very last 1-2 months or so.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a bread and butter, so I use influencers a lot. For me, it's a whole thing.
All right. And Manisha, for you, I mean,
we largely refer to them as influencers, but yeah, lately they've been started referring to them as influencers.
So even I've been also using influencers and influencer marketing, but when this topic was being researched, I started preparing, okay, I have to start using the word finfluencer. You need to get a hang of it, right? I mean, you can't just do it like that. But maybe in the conversation, I might say influencers as well. I might just miss out on the fin bit, but we'll keep the discussion closer to finance influencers. Hi, Sharan, how are you?
Hey, hi. Good evening. I'm doing great. How are you?
Good. Looks like you're off on the long weekend on the road somewhere.
I'm by the beach. Just got off surfing.
Oh, wow. Probably we could end the session with some wanderlust trip from you for the audiences. They'll be like, we are not there, but we are visiting it through Sharan's eyes. So I think we'll Ajinkya can join in soon, we could simply start the discussion. So I want to understand, because we were talking about influencer marketing, I want to understand, like, how do you define influencer marketing from your perspective, Ayush, as the founder at Finit Media, Manisha as a leading brand custodians, and Anushka and Sharan, you guys are content creators in the space. So how do you guys define influencers and influencer marketing? And like, how is it different from influencer marketing or the regular content creation that happens across other sectors? So we could start with you, Manisha, and then you could pass it on to others.
Okay, so influencers are definitely different from the influencers because of the focus of the content which they speak about. They are only focusing on finance as a category. So, and very focused, curated content around finance and various aspects of finance, whether it's any kind of investment option or how to invest, where to invest, what product to invest in. So hence they are a different category than your regular influencers, which could be in any other category like your fashion, lifestyle, travel, other things as well. So hence this category is different in that manner, or this set is different in that definition sense.
Got it. Ayush?
Yeah, I mean, as Manisha mentioned, creators who create a lot of finance content. For example, Sharan here creates personal finance content. Anushka creates a little more massy finance content. She talks about different products, hacks related to finance and all that. And there are also two types of finance creators, right? There's one who are CAs and CFAs themselves, and they talk about that specifically. And then there are young people like 20, 21-year-old creators as well, who are not yet done with their CFAs and CAs, and they're also trying out their hands on stock markets and finance, but they just share that learning. So these are the two type of influencers you could call. Yeah.
Got it. And Anushka, for you?
I guess, like if we talk about content per se, whenever you talk about, like whenever we get a marketing, personally, whenever I get like a marketing brief, what I go with is that I have to talk about the product. I have to talk about the category of the product, the risk associated with it, the benefits of it and all. Whereas probably like for a very normal influencer campaign, it's just product placement. Here it's more integrated, and the marketing that we do or the content that we create is more focused on the pros, cons, educating people about what that content or like what that product is. So I guess that differentiates us a little.
Got it. And Sharan, how do you differentiate from other influencers?
Yeah, so I think most of the points have already been covered. So I would define to differentiate a influencer from a normal influencer, I would say more than just the entertaining aspect. They should add some value to the audience. They should educate the audience and make their lives better. So with every piece of content I create, I ask myself, what is my audience learning out of this? And if there is some tangible benefit that they're gaining out of it, I would consider that a good day's job. So I would say, that is what influencers are trying to solve, make their audience's life better, not just make them laugh or entertain them, but also add some genuine value to them, which has a long-lasting impact.
Okay. And when you guys were starting this journey into finance content creation, did you even think of it in this way, that I want to be a content creator or an influencer in finance? Or you started as a mass creator, and then you found that, okay, finance is one of the niche that we really want to focus on, and probably there are few people who are really big there, and there is a gap which we can fill. So, did you think of it that way, or it just happened by chance for you that you started exploring finance content, people started liking it, and you started building on it? I mean, how did you guys start your journey as finance content creators?
I'll go first.
Yeah, any one of you can do that.
All right. So basically, I didn't start with the purpose of being a content creator or an influencer. I started because in 2020, when COVID happened, all my plans were on stop. I was supposed to go for my master's. I was giving my CFA papers. So everything got postponed. I had a lot of free time in my hand. So that's why I started creating content, which I found interesting. So generally, I love reading about businesses. So that's what I started with. And I guess I created it for 6 months on and off, one video a month or so. And then I guess in October, when my master's and CFA got posted for the second time, that's when I started taking it a little seriously. And I guess within 1-2 weeks, because it was a very new niche at that point, it got picked. So then I'm doing it since then. So I never planned for it. It happened by chance.
So this is one of the pros of lockdown for you, and it's become like a full-time career now. And Sharan, how did it start for you?
Yeah, so I was pretty clear on what I wanted to do. So from the beginning itself, I wanted to create content on personal finance, and personal finance. Some of the things are interesting, but some of the things tend to be really boring for some people. For example, tax saving or insurance. They're really dry topics. But I did not shy away from creating those sort of content, even though the traction wasn't, or the viewership wasn't that great. Most of the times, you might be inclined to pick a topic thinking that it's going to get a lot of views. Take a trending topic, put some music on it, dance to it. But I couldn't dance, so I couldn't do that sort of content. So I was really clear on only making that sort of content which adds value. And if it is boring and complicated, that was more challenging for me to make it as entertaining as possible and put the message out there. So right from the beginning, I was very clear on creating personal finance content which adds genuine value to people and not just a trending topic.
Great. So like both of you, I think, because a lot of content I was consuming from you guys, it's at the intersection of finance and entertainment, wherein you made it simpler for people to consume as well. So again, fintertainment could be a term that we could pick like from a content genre that you guys are working on. Manisha, can you tell us, and even Ayush, you can then weigh in, that what are some of the factors like brands and agencies should look at while choosing to work with finfluencers, and again, how is it different from your mainstream mass influencer marketing? So Manisha, you could start and then Ayush can weigh in.
Yeah. So I think two very important aspects which a brand needs to, especially a financial brand needs to consider before we decide to partner with any influencer is what is the content and the credibility of the influencer, and also the quality and the correctness of the content which they are producing and sharing with their audience. Because it's money decisions which they are going to influence for their followers. So the correctness of the content becomes very important. So that's and also depending upon the goal of your brand and the audience which the brand is trying to reach out to, and the kind of audience which the influencer has, the synergies of all this together becomes a deciding factor before partnering with any influencer. And it goes same with a general influencer also. The audience which the general influencer has and the kind of content which they are going to produce, the brand needs to be seamlessly integrated with their content. It should not be forced. And also the message needs to come out genuine, and he should be really focusing on educating the audience. Is some of the factors which we look for when we partner with such influencers or general influencers as well.
Got it. Ayush?
Yeah, I mean, again, completely agree with Manisha here. But in addition to that, I think one key difference that I've noticed with finance brands as compared to other brands is that finance brands treats influencers like a performance channel. And also the bottom of the funnel layer compared to the top of the funnel in other niches. Let's say entertainment creators who promote a lot of FMCG products, or travel creators who promote a lot of travel things and all that. Brands there don't expect direct ROI from them. As in, if I'm promoting a headphone of Boat, if I'm wearing it, मेरे को brand आके नहीं बोला कि यार 10 बिकेगी नहीं इसके through, आपके इसके through. So that is a key difference that influencers or finance brand have in respect to other brands. Either finance brands are very performance focused. They look at CACs and they look at spends, downloads, link clicks and all that, which of course every brand will look at, but I think it shouldn't be a first factor, because for finance brand, especially startups, credibility comes first as compared to the conversion, because even as creators we can't promote anything and everything, right? Finance, as Manisha mentioned, it's a money influencing decision, so we have to do our round of hygiene at our end. If you're promoting a particular brand, are they even worth promoting? Are we not scamming them in one way or the other? So that is something you also have to look at. So I think credibility and awareness is one factor which finance creators can help with, but somewhere down the line, I think the performance marketing aspect takes over all the time with this. Yeah.
Okay. Even Ajinkya has joined us. Welcome to the panel, Ajinkya.
Hey, thanks. I got a little late.
That's okay. I think so. We were discussing about what are some of the factors brands and agencies look at while working with influencers. Do you have any thoughts to add to that?
We look for so we have our own defined audience, right? So we try to figure out which influencer or which expert has kind of a very high trust or very he has that similar kind of audience, right? And then what is their trust factor and bunch of things, and we basically figure out, hey, are people actually listening to those influencers and getting converted, right? So we try to do our own homework first and then work with the influencers, and then we obviously sometimes just try and figure out what works and what not, right? Because after all the homework also, it is very hard to predict whether something will work or not. Even if the right influencer, whether it goes in a right format, right, whether it hits, whether it becomes interesting, there are a lot of variables, right? So you can't really control after doing homework also.
Right. So like Sharan and Anushka, I think what even like everyone, Manisha, Jinkya, Ayush, they mentioned that brands look at credibility, and they also look at correctness of the content that you guys are creating. They would want it to be correct and not ambiguous of sorts. So how do you guys as finance content creators work on that aspect of it? Like how have you managed to build a credible brand for yourself, and like a credible personal brand for yourself when I say, and like what are some of the factors you keep in mind that no way I would ever do this because this would reduce the trust that the audience has on us? And yeah, I mean, like how do you guys manage to even nurture credibility and trust with your audiences? So Sharon, you could start, and then Anushka can always add.
Sure. So I'm a firm believer that if a piece of content is not making sense, even though you badly want to post it, let's say maybe it's making partial sense but not really making full sense, don't post it at all. Right? It doesn't matter if you don't post for that particular day, but you don't post just for the sake of posting. So how we do that is, firstly, obviously, to get the genesis of the idea, there are obviously many reputed newspaper publications out there, which we go through, me and my team of content researchers, which is around 6 people at the moment. But then that is still not enough, because I've come across certain instances where these reputed newspaper publications were also wrong, right? But they go under the radar because these are, they post stuff in volume, like maybe 20, 30 publications per day, and things go under the radar. So I've come across some instances where even they are wrong. So I do my due diligence and go one step further and go to the source of that information as well. So that's number one. Second thing is we build financial models to test the hypothesis. For example, let's say we are saying that, maybe renting until a certain age is better than buying through a home loan outright. We actually test. So let's say an article is saying that, but we will actually build out the financial model and see if it's actually making sense. And if it doesn't make sense, we won't post this, even though a reputed newspaper publication is saying it. If it doesn't make sense according to the financial model, we won't. Sometimes it takes us 2 to 3 days to arrive at the conclusion. And it's very disheartening to see, it doesn't work out, so we can't post anything. So the 2 to 3 days work is waste. But it doesn't matter, because we are asking people to invest their hard-earned money at the end of the day. So we can't take that sort of risk. So yeah, so these are some of the things that I look at to ensure that the information that is put out there is of the utmost accuracy. And finally, even after posting, a job doesn't end. I spend at least 2 to 3 hours looking at the comment section, answering every people's doubts. And sometimes content can get interpreted in the wrong way. So people will comment saying that, this is wrong, this is not how it is. Then you go through that comment, understand what they're trying to say, and give them a very solid response saying that this is how it has been calculated. And I spend a lot of time on my caption as well. Video is not the only thing I focus on. I spend at least, I write at least 300 to 400 words in my caption to ensure that the entire crux of the information is out there, because how much can you convey in a 30 or 60-second video, especially about finance? So I spend a lot of time on the caption as well to ensure that the correct message is being put out there. So these are some of the things that I look at to ensure sanctity of information.
Great. And Anushka, like how have you managed to build trust and credibility for yourself as a finance content creator?
So like everything almost what Sharon said, you do your own due diligence. You always make sure that it's well sourced, and you ensure that whatever you're putting, it's very well thoroughly researched. Other than that, I feel one additional thing, because I'm from the industry, I've studied finance and I've worked in finance. So I've like a lot of people in my network, from insurance to taxation, where I to even mutual funds. So wherever I'm putting something, I don't have like a very big team of researchers. All my content comes from me and my personal experiences and what I'm researching and reading. So whatever new or something that I'm not already experienced, because in finance, what happens is, even though when you read something, there's something on paper, the interpretation is completely different. You need a lot of people with experience can only actually tell you what is the practical applicability of something, or whether it's whatever's written on paper, how true is that and how was the experience then. So one additional step I do is that every piece of content which has some technical detail which I have no personal experience in, that is always vetted by these professionals who've been in the industry for at least say 10-15 years.
Got it. And so I think there was one thing more which Ayush had mentioned, that most of the time, so credibility and awareness is something which influencers can help brands with, but a lot of times brands also look at the performance side of things. So my question to Manisha, Ajinkya and Ayush, so in a typical consumer journey, where is it that you think that influencers are being overused at this point, and where is it that you think that they are being underused? When I say underused, it's like there is a good use case there, but then brands have not really explored it. Or when I say overused, like there is a use case which is being done and dusted. So like probably we could start with you, Ajinkya, from your perspective, and then Ayush and Manisha can also share their opinion.
Yes, I think like overused, I don't know, but underused is, I think, like about educating about the product, about the brand. There is a lot of focus probably, and we've seen this, we get this feedback from the influencers that we work with. We generally give them complete freedom. We just want to make sure that it is factually correct, and like whatever is getting conveyed, it is not completely, off the shelf, like completely off the mark. I think that's the underutilized part. I'm not really sure about overuse part, because we haven't really done an extensive work. Probably Ayush, Sharan and Anushka will be able to tell it better because they have worked with multiple brands.
Ayush?
Yeah, I mean, exactly what I was saying, the top of the funnel and the bottom of the funnel thing. I think lot of brands right now are looking at creators as a channel for acquisition. That I think has been overused. What is underused, I think, is the credibility and awareness factor, which a few brands are now slowly getting into, which is, let's say, a Sharan can be used or Anushka's face value can be leveraged to build credibility, not just via her channel, but via the creators, via the brand channel itself. Let's say a IP created by a brand for their own audience, for their own community, for their own group of people. If that is done, they're not doing influence marketing on the creators channel, but on the brand space. I think that is underutilized right now, and a few brands, roughly 3-4 brands in my mind right now, are slowly getting into this and they're trying to scale this. So the credibility in brand in the right sense is what they're trying to attack.
Manisha?
Okay, I will first take the part where, how do influencers, tackle this aspect, whether their content which they're creating is correct or not. So there are some influencers, like Anushka mentioned, that she gets her content verified from experts. So there are a lot of influencers who do this, like they do get their content verified by different vertical experts like insurance, taxation, mutual funds, or investments. So, some kind of a guideline which makes this as a practice for all financial content creators. It could give that credibility to more people who are creating a lot of content, and also to the consumer side who's consuming this content from these influencers. So I think that guideline may help. Second, when you come to the where does the influencers fit into the purchase funnel of a consumer, I feel they form part of not just the bottom funnel but across the funnel. Like they're very good for creating very important aspect for creating awareness for the brand, or say a new product launch. Where I feel they are not utilized completely is in the middle funnel to build consideration for the brand. They could be used, they could be used very well for creating integrated series of content and not just one piece of content at once and then leave it there. but use them or partner with them to create a series of content, since they know their audience well. They know what resonates with their audience and what kind of content format works well with their audience. So a series of content, more continuous work with them definitely will help the brand, and it does help the brand, build that consideration also. And conversion, yes, of course, it helps. They do help in getting conversions, and we can simply track it by UTM parameters and all. But yeah, middle funnel, I definitely feel influences are not being utilized well.
I'll just flip this question towards Anushka and Sharon. Where is it that you think that, like, you see that there are a lot of campaigns that come to you or collaborations that come to you might not be the right fit, but because the brand wants it to be done and you have to do it, you do it? And where is it that you think that there are things that in your content itself that you have some hooks which can work really well for brands, but they don't really leverage it, like they underutilize it? So what is it that you think is better? Like Ayush and Manisha and even Ajinkya said that like from a top of the funnel or a middle of the funnel or bottom of the funnel perspective, somewhere there is a gap. Like maybe a lot of brands only just want conversion and they would want you to put specific codes in your caption, or they would want you to go out and sell outrightly, which your audience may or may not be used to consuming. So what is that one thing that you think that it really works on your platform but brands have not really managed to leverage it? And what is that one thing you think is again very overused? And you don't have to name brands specifically, but you can tell us specific use cases saying this particular piece of campaign or this kind of campaigns don't usually work, but still brands want it. And at the same time, these are the kind of things that are very open for brands to explore, but they're not really exploring it. Anushka, you could start. And
well, on my platform per se, like I mainly create content on Instagram. I feel like for that, I guess more or less as a balance. But like Manisha said, one thing, that the middle funnel thing, where brands don't necessarily have to come to us just every time to sell. A lot of times when just co-brand the education that you're giving. So there is like one company that I've worked with which does not focus on, they don't belabor on like ask people to download the app, ask people to sign up. They just want a simple integration where I'm talking about the industry that they're in. I'm talking about the particular products. I'm talking about pros and cons. It's more of an educational series with just their branding. So in no way I'm asking them to, or no way they also pressure me to make people to download. They're just asking me to educate to people. And what has happened then is that people themselves ask me then, like, is this, you've talked about this thing or you've seen this brand elsewhere also, is this something which we can utilize? And other than that, what also a lot of brands don't focus on is creating content for their own social media. Because if we are making, say, if they're coming up with a campaign and they're partnering with, say, 30 creators, they will get an increase, they'll get a spike, but then they have to see, for finance brands, it's very difficult to get downloads, but it's relatively easy to get fall into their social media pages. So there, if they have educational content, then they can build more long-term trust with their audience. There, the conversions then eventually to the brand also will be higher. So I guess a couple of brands have figured that out and they're starting with it. But yeah, more or less, the brands, like a lot of brands, they just come, they do one campaign, they see the spike, or they, they spend a lot, but they don't see returns because it's a relatively new brand and they don't follow up, or they don't have their own social media presence, then they're not even going to get returns from the marketing. So these are a few things where I think brands should focus on. Like one is creating their own social media presence, and second is not blabbering on getting downloads or something, getting soft, subtle integrations, which our audience also does not feel as intruding and we are selling them something.
True. Sharon, your thoughts?
Yeah, so I think there's no one size fit for all solution for brands, because I think it depends on what stage of the journey that the brand is in. For example, a very new brand might focus only on installs, right? Because their valuation might be determined by how many installs they're able to generate. And therefore, obviously, the top manager will put pressure on the marketing team to get the installs. And then maybe a brand which is somewhere further along in their journey, they might want more AUM more AUM to show their investors that, we've gotten in so much money. We're not just, focusing on installs. They're also actually getting in money from our users. right? So I don't know if I can say, brands should not focus on installs or should not focus on AUM or should only focus on, the viewership. It really depends on what stage the brand is in. Now, coming to the point about what should be expected from the content creator, see, so right now I'm fortunate that, I have a huge, distribution and I'm able to bring even AUMs. But that might not be true for a new content creator who is just starting out. So expecting AUM from a new content creator might be really difficult, right? So I think brands should understand, how to, allocate different KPIs across different content creators, and understand that everything cannot be expected from everybody. And at the end of the day, content creators are working on the top of the funnel. There is an expectation to also bring in bottom of the funnel metrics, but it might not be possible, all the time. And there's always saturation going to happen. So I mean, all in all, I think but brands are doing what they think is right. I mean, I can't really comment on whether they should do something differently or not, right? I mean, they're all answerable to their stakeholders, right? So that's my opinion about it.
Yeah, but then like to you both, like Anushka and Sharan, like is there a format that you think, or is there a ideal roadmap that you think that if a certain brand is working with me for a certain period, they're doing this kind of content with me, I know that they would get certain results out of it. Like you are very sure. While at the same time, if a brand is coming in with their notion and they've not really consulted with you, and they've come in and put in a campaign to you directly without having your expertise or your opinion on it. So I was trying to understand what is an ideal roadmap which you think should work for brands at least. And I'm not saying that you give it from your personal experience. You could just share like a structure that, okay, if I'm working with a brand or if a finance creator is working with a brand, ideally these are the 2-3 things, or these are the 3 things that they should be doing while they're working with people like us.
So I'll go first. I think first thing is don't don't mess with the script or what the content creator is giving you, especially if it doesn't violate any legal clauses, right? Many times what I've observed is the marketing team thinks that they have a certain vision and they want that to come in, right? They want as many features of the brand to be incorporated in the video as possible. But content creation doesn't work that way, because if I just talk about all the features and give a laundry list of all the features what that app is going to do, people are just going to think of it as me selling a product too hard and just shoving it down their throats. So I think that is the number one feedback I would like to give brands or the marketing team, that the content creation knows their content best. The content creators know their page best. They are the CEOs of their page. So give them the creative freedom to do what they want, and give them they should have the final sign off of what should go. Unless of course it violates any legal clauses, obviously that is understandable. But apart from that, I think the content creator has to be given full freedom on the creativity aspect of it. That's my piece. Nothing else.
And Anushka, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I guess apart from that, have a clear vision of what you want at the end of the day. Do you want downloads? Do you want people to invest in something AUM? Do you want just brand visibility? Because according to that, we script them. So you can't have all. There has to be like some metric. You either, if you want more visibility, we make the content a little bit more hilarious. If you want more AUM, then we make the content more education. At the end of the day, on Instagram, we just have a minute. So have clear defined goal as to what you want, and then let the content creator do the work.
Okay. And Manisha, from your perspective as a brand manager now, as a brand head, when you plan to work with influencers, or when you sit and chalk out your marketing blueprint or the media mix, where is it that influencers are really important for you, and where is it that you think that you've been doing good work with influencers, and where is it that you think that there is a lot of gap and scope for you to explore? I think you're on mute, Manisha.
Sorry. So as Sharan mentioned, one size doesn't fit all. So even when we are, looking to work with influencers, we define our goals very clearly. Depending upon which influencer we go to, what is the goal that we're trying to achieve through that influencer? So that helps us definitely, script the content with the specific influencer. Also, influencer marketing for us is a very important part of our content marketing. I feel it's more of content marketing than from the part of the media mix, because it's a content which we are creating for your brand, for the same audience set which you are targeting, and it also has synergized with the audience which the influencer has. So it does form a very important part. And it's also, seen that, and researchers have also shown that the digital influencers, in fact, helps improve the trust in the brand and also perception of the brand. So it is a very important part of the overall, marketing mix. I would say it's not a huge portion right now. It's a very small portion currently, but yes, it is improving, and more brands, and like us also, we are also seeing this as an important area to focus more on, and incorporate it across different funnels, depending upon what is the objective we are trying to achieve, whether it's awareness for a certain product, or integration of an existing product, or building more consideration from an existing product. That's how we also decide which, how much budget to allocate, which influencer to partner with, and what is the messaging or the KPI that we are driving with a specific influencer.
I think Sharon also mentioned this thing about legal clauses or even guidelines to follow. So I understand that there are already a set of guidelines associated with BFSI in general, and then you also have guidelines from ASCII on influencer marketing, or even for crypto advertising for that matter. So Ayush and Ajinkya, if you could share what is the best possible solution to work out for brands working with influencers to make sure that they are within the guidelines, and at the same time these guidelines are not limiting their objectives or the goals that they're trying to chase. Ayush, you could start, and then Ajinkya, you could join in the conversation.
Guidelines in what sense? You mean promoting anything or anything? What do you mean?
So there are these guidelines around BFSI products anyways, that you can't use certain terms, or you can't you can't be really sure that investments in this would lead to XYZ returns. So like as a category, there are guidelines, and then you also have ASCII guidelines for influencers.
Yeah. Right.
How does a brand really make sure that these guidelines are being followed? One, that is for sure. And the second thing is that these guidelines don't limit their objectives or the goals that they're chasing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, there are two ways to go about here. Number one, there are a lot of brands who themselves ask to go to a certain extent of putting a disclaimer at the end of the video itself. Even though that reduces the views by more than 30, 40, 50%, you don't even know, because disclaimer just looks very, very bad on a creator's video. But there are certain brands who have asked us to do that as well, because the product was like that. So I think brands from that sense are, even if the creator sometimes doesn't care, but the brand would be super extra focused, extra careful. This has to go, without this the video can't go live, etc. Brand themselves are very like that. There's a lot of due diligence and compliance work that goes behind that. In fact, there was a brand campaign right now in the mutual fund space that we were doing. It was a big 50-60 liter campaign, and every video we had to put disclaimer and in this not advice, etc., in the captions and all that. So I think that part, more or less every finance brand is taking care of. But if not, we as creators also make sure that if we are not putting a disclaimer as such, we are not asking them to buy something directly as well. We also try to go as subtle as possible being creators. We don't like direct promotions ourselves. In fact, Anushka and Sharon both are creators. They'll not promote anything unless they would personally use them, or they've already used them. These are two things. In fact, there's another brand who have been working with retainer basis. Anushka has been rejecting them left, right, center, because she doesn't believe in the product. So I think that kind of decisions once happens already in the creator layer as well. In the mix of two things, I think that is taken care of. Sometimes when it does happen that the brand doesn't want to put it because views come ho jate hain, and the creator is being forced ki ye mat karo, tab we have to sort of find a middle ground. Caption में डाल दो या कुछ हम डायरेक्टली नहीं बोलेंगे या सटल लेंगे, वहां पे मिडिल ग्राउंड केस टू केस बेसिस पे निकालना पड़ता है.
But do you think there is a need of guidelines which are very specific to influencer marketing, as in that because there are, like you said, Anushka has been rejecting a certain brand because she doesn't believe in it. But there would be 5 other creators who might be taking up that work. And maybe ethically that might not be right, but because there are no guidelines to sort of limit that. So you think that there is a scope or a gap for some guidelines to be there for influencer marketing?
So on the first one, yes, I think there can be guidelines that creators can follow. But on the particular use case, no, because Anushka, that product, the company I'm talking about, is a personal belief that Anushka as a creator has. Uspe you can't really put a guideline, right? It's a personal decision. But on the first thing, yeah, I mean there are scope. I mean, I think there can be checklists of sorts that a creator or an agency can go through. These certificates or these things the finance brand must have if they want to promote and all that. Because sometimes क्या होता है वो seed round भी raise नहीं करे होते हैं, उन्होंने कुछ registration regulation भी नहीं किया होता है, and they come to us for like promote कर दो. And we say them obviously it's not hard to judge that on a surface level itself. But still some people still promote it as long as they're giving money. So वहाँ पे I think checklist या कुछ तो होना चाहिए minimum requirements by a brand or the creator that they have to make sure कि इतना अगर है तो we can go ahead, otherwise we can't.
Ajinkya, your thoughts on this?
Like as Aish mentioned, right, brands do take care and influencers also do take care because this is a long-term game. Everybody knows it is a long-term game. Guidelines, I mean, at some point of time, I do expect some formal guidelines to come, right? But those guidelines will also to cover the basics. I think most of the influencers we have worked with are very careful about what they're putting up. So their own standards are much above those guidelines. But as with any industry, right, there will be some people who will do mischievous things, either brands or influencers, very few of them. And the regulator will get involved. So that's just nature of things. But I think on a large scale, I think everybody's at least our experience is very positive that we as a brand are very, very careful. Like we have our own standards much above the regulation, right? And the influencers we have worked with have been largely or probably all have been very careful about what they're telling to their audience, whether they personally believe it or not, right? And in fact, we had a couple of influencers who first thought this product is not great, and they said we don't want to work with you, and we really like that. And I went on the call and spoke with the influencer, made the product understand and explained them this is the very need that you should do a video about this because just educate, right? And so I see overall, if you ask me, 95% of the videos or brands, influencers are doing really good work. But there are always, in any industry, there will be some bad apples, right? And they will invite regulation. I mean, I certainly expect that something will happen.
Yeah, I mean, to add to that, sorry to cut you in, but Ajinkya from itself is a client as well. And whenever I work with them, they have, specifically told them the POC that you have to add that there is a risk in our product, right? Which is a very weird thing for a brand to say because they don't want to say that because conversions will go down, LinkedIn clicks will go down, etc. But they still want to because they want the, the audience to know कि ये risky product है. And they don't want to just scam people कि आ जाओ download कर लो पैसे डाल दो, वो नहीं करना चाहते. I think these type of brands themselves take care of it.
Okay. And Manisha, do you think that we need certain guidelines in place?
Yeah, I think I'll add there, adding to Aishu's point, actually contribute to that. I am in the mutual fund industry, and we are a highly regulated industry and very clear about highlighting the risks to the consumer upfront and not just talking about the benefits of the product. And like I mentioned earlier, some kind of guideline which can evaluate or which can give certain direction in terms of the correctness of the content which the influencer is creating may definitely help both the brands and the consumers also, people who are consuming the content, and also brands when they are choosing to partner with an influencer. So I think guideline in that area will help.
Just one more thing, but I think that'll be very difficult to achieve because we've seen content like that on Twitter for so long and nothing has been done there. I think the disclosures, the transparency, whether something stayed or not.
Qualitative thing. So how it will be done and measured is, or tracked for that matter, is a challenge definitely.
Yeah, because Twitter's been around for so long and the influencers on Twitter have been there for like many years, you can say. I think at least 7-8 years that I have known of. And there's no sort of regulations and things are being pumped and there are like all sorts of things. So that'll be very difficult to achieve.
Yeah, I mean, I think there are a lot of because we are talking, like you all are coming from very different backgrounds, so to say, you would have certain thoughts and opinions on how the guidelines should be. But probably an industry body, when they sit and talk to agency owners, they sit and talk to brands and even content creators, they would realize that, okay, this is like a ideal solution that we need in terms of guidelines. So like I'll quickly jump onto a section which I really like when I'm moderating sessions like these. It's passing the parcel of sorts, wherein each of the panelists, they ask another panelist a question, and we make sure that everyone gets to ask one question and everyone gets to answer once at least. So like say Ajinkya can ask a question to Anushka can then pass it to Ayush can then ask Manisha, and then Manisha can close the loop by asking a question to Sharan. Now, this is an example loop. I will just start with, say, Anushka, if you have a question for one of the panelists, who would it be? And then we can just continue the chain.
Wow. Just give me a second here. Well, yeah, I personally know everyone. I don't really know Manisha. So I have a question for Manisha. How do you define a successful campaign, maybe? We can't hear you.
Sorry. So it depends on my goal. So if I'm trying to create, awareness or launch a new product, and awareness, then definitely awareness becomes my objective for that particular, campaign or tie up with the influencer. So what is the kind of, lift or inquiries or, traffic that particular, integration helps me get? That will help me decide the success of that campaign. If I'm trying to create, more consideration for an existing product, then what are the kinds of leads do I get for that product after the integration? Maybe it will help me define the KPI of that particular integration. So it clearly depends upon what is the goal I'm trying to achieve, and that will define my KPI. And I can't say it's one KPI or one goal.
Okay. And Manisha, now you can ask a question to someone, but not Anushka, because then it will become a loop.
So I'll ask to maybe Ayush, since you work with a lot of content creators, and we have just started our journey in partnering with film influencers and other influencers also. We have very strict guidelines in our industry in terms of what we say. We can't say use superlatives, and since you work in mutual funds, you would know all those guidelines. So, and of course, there is a kind of messaging format or the way the influencer talks to their audience. So, how do you usually arrive at a midway that the objective of the brand is also met, and also the influencer is able to create content in that format which the audience will resonate with, and it's not a force fit from either of the sides. So what are the challenges you usually face in getting both of them to the middle ground?
Yeah, I mean, this used to happen in the initial phase of when we started working in brands, but right now we have clear, like, we get on a call with the brand POC, and we understand what they are looking for, what is their exact objective in terms of KPI, and also what is the type of content they want to put out, what is the type of integration they want to put out. They want direct, or they want subtle, or they want integrated, etc., etc. And once we have clarity on that, we try to, let's say there are a list of 30 creators that are working with. We'll specifically tell them that, let's say this 10 creators, their style is subtle, and they will not do direct marketing, or they'll not do. So the expectation setting has to be done in advance. अगर हम ऐसे randomly बोल देंगे हाँ कर लेते हैं, and then at the end when we put out the content, there's difference in expectation कि brand thought ये करने वाले थे, तुमने तो ये करके दे दिया. So expectation का gap हो जाता है. So once the brand shortlist creators, we on an individual basis get on a call with them and tell them कि this is the type of promotion this creator will do, this is the type of creation that we can do, and that's how we found middle ground before even proceeding with the content piece. Otherwise the expectation mismatch baad mein aata hai, and then there's hassle and all that, so we avoid that in the initial app as well. And the creators who do subtle also, it works for them. There's authority, their influence, they know that they know their audience better than everyone, of course. So उनको पता है कि ऐसे भी करेंगे तो चलेगा. So just that needs to be communicated to the brand. कभी कभी brand मानते हैं, कभी नहीं मानते हैं, but that's okay. That's part of the game. Yeah.
Ayush, your question to either Sharan or Ajinkya.
Okay, I'll ask Ajinkya question. How can I know that money is important, of course. Marketing spends, you spend X amount of money, you want X plus one at least, right? You want plus one the ROI. But what can creators other than conversions offer, which is also trackable, let's say, because awareness is not trackable, recall is not trackable that much. What other can we offer to a brand as creators or agencies that brand would be willing to indulge with or want to collaborate with on that?
That's a very difficult question, but like I'll tell you कि whenever we have clarity ना कि क्यों कर रहे वीडियो, वो अचीव होता है कि नहीं, वो कहीं ना कहीं से पता चली जाता है. एक तो कमेंट्स जो सेक्शन होता है ना किसी भी वीडियो के, उसमें अच्छा खासा फीडबैक मिल जाता है, राइट? अगर लाइक लेट्स से हमने एक वीडियो किया था थिंक स्कूल के साथ जो ब्रांड पे अच्छा था, एंड आई गॉट 4-5 कॉल्स रैंडमली फ्रॉम पीपल कि ये आई गॉट टू नो अबाउट विंटर फ्रॉम माय स्कूल फ्रेंड्स वगैरह वगैरह, राइट? तो वो पता चलता है कि यार ये वीडियो इतना अच्छा बना है. सो मतलब वो ब्रांड को क्लैरिटी है, तो देयर इज ऑलवेज वे ऑफ मेजरिंग. एवरी टाइम इट कैन नॉट बी क्वांटिटेटिव कि इतने कन्वर्जन में इतना ही है. कई बार फील भी होता है कि यार मस्त मजा आया मेरे को देख के, राइट? और लोगों से भी वो कमेंट्स में पता चलता है कि हाउ आर पीपल थिंकिंग अबाउट इट, राइट? क्या है, और उसमें भी टिपिकल कमेंट्स रहते हैं कि फर्स्ट कमेंट, राइट? उसके कुछ लोग आके गाली देंगे इन्फ्लुएंसर को, उसके बाद कुछ होते हैं कि कंटेंट से रिलेटेड कि ये बताओ, ये अच्छा बताया, ये क्या बताया, एंड वहां से काफी फील मिलता है. आई थिंक जो भी काम करते हैं, मतलब इवन लाइक अंकित इन माय टीम वर्क्स, राइट? सो फील मिलता है कि क्या सही गया, क्या नहीं गया. सो देयर इज ऑलवेज वे, राइट? ऑब्वियसली हर टाइम ऑब्जेक्टिव नहीं होगा, राइट? मतलब इट्स आर्ट एट द एंड ऑफ द डे आल्सो.
True. But I think a lot of people who would be watching this, and like even from an agency perspective, they actually die to hear from the client ke maza aaya. I mean, ke feel aaya. I mean, a lot of them don't really get to hear that. It's like it's music to their ears. Ajinkya, your question to Sharan. Sharan is there? Yeah,
Yes, I'm here.
Yes. No, so I'm curious to know, like, so how influencers work is like they have certain formats. So how do you go about finding new formats of content, right? So everybody will have one format, this works. Then how do you experiment and find a new format?
So I have a certain kind of categories that I've chosen to focus on. So one would be mutual fund industry, then there would be insurance, taxation, and let's say cryptocurrencies and psychology of money. So these are some of the categories of content that I focus on. So I know that these are the verticals, and for these verticals I have sources tagged. So each of these verticals will have certain kind of sources on the internet that is giving good sort of information, right? For example, let's say when it comes to investing in the mutual fund industry, Jago Investor is a very good source, right? So that is just one example, right? So that is how the genesis of the idea happens. And then when I read an article, then I sort of ask questions like how can I create an actionable insight out of this information? Like how can I view it in a different way? For example, let's say taking a car loan. How much percentage of my income should be the down payment of that car loan? How many years should the car loan be for? How do I decide that, right? And how does that interplay with respect to other aspects of finance, such as taxation? How does that affect my FOIR, right? How much should the home loan be? How much component of the home loan should be a part of my liability? So all of that, questions, I keep asking myself, and that's how I create unique pieces of content. So the genesis of the idea comes from multiple sources that I constantly keep tracking. And then I ask these counter questions, and then I brainstorm with my team, and then we come up with unique pieces of content. So it's a very, I can't really put a structure around it. I still don't know what the structure is. But these are the three pillars that I keep telling my team. So the first thing, it should have mass appeal, that it should not be a very niche piece of content, such as, options trading or, derivatives trading, because that doesn't appeal to a large number of people. The second thing should be that it should have a very, very clear gain to the audience. For example, let's say last year, Ronaldo, moved that Coke bottle, and that became a viral sensation. And every content creator went on their bandwagon and created a piece of content around it, for creating viewership. and then turns out that was not even the cause of the the stock prices falling. So I wouldn't do a piece of content like that, because that is just that is just value add at the point of time. It's basically just parroting what the media is saying. So I wouldn't create a piece of content around that. I would focus on more like, if it has a long-term benefit to my audience in terms of making him richer or making him save more money. And the last leg that I look at is if it should be an actionable insight. Like if it's a piece of content which is going to affect the audience, whether he does anything or not, then it's not really a value add to him. At the end of my content, there should be a clear CTA for my audience to take action and make it, and make it benefit him. Right? Only if it does that, that would fit my criteria of content. So these are the broad, the broad lenses that I look at when creating content. Yeah.
And Sharan, your question to Anushka now.
Yeah. So Anushka, my question to you would be, like how do you react when a brand says the campaign did not work well? How do you deal with that? How do you kind of tackle that, and what is the basically how do you deal with that? Because that happens sometimes, and it takes a toll on me sometimes, and to make perform better. And I just want to understand from your perspective, how do you deal with that?
I don't. Ayush handles that for me. And personally, I have sort of come up with ways to know what works. So we've been doing this. I've been doing this. We both have been doing this for almost a year and a half now. So we've come to know a few tricks how like from the perspective what the brand wants. Unko, they want reach, they want download. So what works, what doesn't work. So more or less now it's more trackable. If it doesn't work, then the brand doesn't fit. Ayush, deal with it. But there's nothing in our hand, because same category, one brand works, one doesn't work. So it's also a lot about the algorithm and what clicks with the audience and not. So
Got it. Yeah. Thank you.
We'll wrap up the session with one last word from each one of you. So like if you guys could share what is the one thing that would shape the future for influencer marketing, and one thing you think should be banished, like one thing that shouldn't exist in the system when for influencer marketing to grow. We could start with someone. We could start with Manisha and end it with Ajinkya. You're on mute.
I did this the third time. I think what could help this category grow definitely is more understanding between between the content creators and the brands, and on what should be expected, what shouldn't be expected, and what can the content creator deliver. That will definitely help brands partner with more influencers. Today, I think there is a lot of like for us, we started quite late using this category. So there's a lot of apprehension whether they'll put the right content, whether their audience is correct, whether the audience is genuine or not, as in the followers which are really shown. So breaking some myths around that, and maybe people like Ayush can really bridge that gap between brands and content creators. That will definitely help this category grow more. And one thing which should be banished is like definitely again I would come to the guideline. There's some guideline which helps decide or evaluate the credibility or the correctness of the content. Will definitely help in this category also.
Anushka, you?
I'm so sorry. Can you please repeat the question?
I said one thing that would shape the future for influencer marketing, and in your sense for influencers, and one thing you think should be banished.
Right. So I think one thing that should be banished, and something that I'm also personally against, is I understand, like even I am someone who is very young, but there are like certain things, like it can come in the form of guidelines. So there's certain certifications required to suggest a particular mutual fund, like one particular mutual fund. There's certain qualifications required to suggest stocks. and I don't make that type of content. And then that type of content is the content which works really well because people want to know those things. So there are like creators who are revealing their portfolios and they're telling, but there's a lot of times, when you are earning at a scale, your viewers are earning at a different scale. So even what you're investing is not correct for them. So I absolutely would want some guideline here that they don't recommend direct mutual funds, direct stocks, direct like asking people to invest directly, because at the end of the day, people trust you, and when they trust you and they invest in this, abhi to chalo bull run chal raha, chalo recent they've corrected also, but when things go bad, things can go really bad. So that is one thing I feel there should be immediate guidelines on, that you don't ask them directly. You, like, as influencers, do more on promoting the brand instead of asking people to directly invest into a product, because it's very difficult. You are not giving one-on-one consultation here. You are appealing to an audience. So when you can't, there's no way you can ask them to do a certain product, like certain particular product, a certain particular mutual fund. So that I think shouldn't be done. And as a finance creator, I believe at the end of the day, we are working on algorithms, and algorithms will promote massy stuff. So sometimes, even if you have to deal with not growing for a while or not getting as much views as other creators, but you are creating good content at the end of the day, because I've seen that for myself. I have, last 1 year, I would say, like, I don't know if people understand it because we do it day in and out, I can say the algorithm's been against me. However, for the simple fact that I am not doing extremely, those clickbaity sort contents where 5 stocks to buy, 10 mutual funds to not buy and stuff, I am still seen as a premium brand, even though I don't have that massive of a following. So you have to stick to your own beliefs and make good content and not mislead people. That's I think how influencers should be in the path.
That's good learning. I think without domain expertise, you shouldn't really like guide people of such. And if you are into that recommendation zone, then there has to be a certain qualification that you come with or certain expertise that you come with. Ayush, your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, in addition to what Anushka said, I'll go back to the expectation alignment point. I think if there's a brand needs distribution, and distribution is something that creator has, right? So there's a lot of sense in collaboration between influencers and fintech brands. But I still think that it hasn't been cracked in the right sense, in the true sense. एक synergy जो proper होनी चाहिए वो हो नहीं रही है because of that expectation misalignment, which I was talking about कि brand सोचता है ये मिलेगा but creator सोचता है हम ये कर रहे हैं, वो bridge करना, वो उस पे थोड़ा brainstorm करना and finding a middle ground is very important, because once you find that middle ground, top of the funnel, bottom of the funnel ठीक है, but जैसे मनीषा कह रही थी middle of the funnel consideration वाला point हो गया, all that stuff also comes under in just US में. I was speaking to a brand yesterday and they talked about how in US creators don't do direct marketing. They if I'm sitting right now and I'm talking to you, I'm drinking this water bottle, ये मेरी marketing हो रही है, पैसे दिए मेरे को बिस्लरी ने यहाँ पे marketing करने के. That's all that influencers in the US will do, subtle psychological influence marketing. So this इंडिया में कोई नहीं करने वाला. इंडिया में उनको डायरेक्ट चाहिए, बोलना पड़ेगा, लिंक इन बायो एक्सेट्रा. So that is also fine, I feel, but वो middle ground निकालना for a particular brand is important. I think that is something I am trying to work on. Yeah.
So from a future perspective, what is it that one thing you think should shape the future of influencer marketing? I think you mentioned one thing about co-branded IPs. So do you see anything else that brands should be looking at from an influencer perspective?
Yeah, I mean, something that we are doing at Finet, of course, with Anushka and Sharan itself, is that हम एक brand के लिए everything we are doing, like let's say Sharan is doing influencer marketing, promoting that particular brand on his channel, across channels, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, etc., whatever he has exclusively. So he's loyal to that brand, number one. Then he's co-creating content with them for their channel. उनके YouTube पे जा रहा है, उनके live sessions में जा रहा है, उनके साथ community content हो रहा है, वहाँ interactions अलग चल रहे हैं. And on the third basis, ad production भी अगर हो रहा है, जैसे in initial times you used to use celebrity for ad endorsements. Today you see Sharan being in an ad, you see Anushka in an ad, and that's happening because we are doing it for a lot of brands that we are working on a long-term relationship with. So showing these creators itself as faces of the brands is the third part of synergy that we're exploring. I think वहाँ पे जाता जाएगा. Ajinkya was talking about, Think School. There's Akshay Srivastav, there's Rachna ma'am, and bunch of creators. ये these are gonna become future channels of finance, education. जब मैं 5 years ago I didn't have these channels, but now at today's 18, 20, 22 years old have these channels, and they watch these channels for all their decision making. So अब अगर कल शाहरुख खान बोलेगा कि इवेंट 12 में डालो, कोई नहीं डालेगा, बट अक्षत बोलेंगे तो डालेंगे. तो वो ad level पे जब पहुंच जाएगा, I think that's where the future is heading.
Got it. Sharon, you can share your thoughts on the future.
Yeah, so firstly, I 100% agree with what Anushka said. There are certain things which people should not be promoting, even though it is very easy to sell them. Mutual funds being one of them. So I've seen brands approach us saying, talk about this particular fund that they recently launched and please promote this. This is not right as per the SEBI rules. There's already guidelines for this, but nobody is seeing through it because maybe the scale is not big enough, or SEBI is not really looking at it, or they don't know. So I think that has to be taken care of. And second thing, I would say what needs to change is, I think the fact that our content is being repurposed, and there are fake accounts being created. And for example, what has happened with both me and Anushka, I believe, is there are fake accounts being created and they are reaching out to our new audience. As soon as they follow us, they get a DM saying that DM from the fake account of us saying we have this algorithm, invest money with us, and we'll make you rich and all of that. And that's happening a lot these days. There's nothing much I can do about it apart from tell my audience, right? So I think that also has to be fixed, right? And preventing aggregator platforms from taking our content and putting it on their pages, because then they are using our face to sell something which we might not we might not believe in, because they use our content, build an audience, and then sell products on their page. So that is misleading. So those are the things I think needs to be fixed.
Got it. Ajinkya?
Yeah, I think what can be like, I think how this will shape is like, we are already seeing that, right? In Windwell, a lot of influencers actually invested money. So like for most of the influencers, the main kind of brands they are working with are our technology brands, right? And for finance and tech, for fintech, this is going to be a very big fit. The influencers who understand technology businesses well, the overall dynamics of it, will kill it more. So they are already great at understanding their audience, but who will and they're creating solid value for their audience. Okay, the ones who will be able to capture that value for themselves will be the ones who understand technology businesses really well, right? Start from really investing in technology businesses, but eventually it will go beyond that, right? Because they are why we decided to work with influencer is not because they have distribution. That we would anyway do with a lot of influencers who are not our equity investors. What we realize is that they understand consumers, right? So there are a lot of information arbitrage that they have. They've learned something about their consumers, which makes their content click, it clicks with their audience, right? So there is some kind of art. I always keep saying this. There is part of art, right? So they have mastered that art, but who will the influencers who will master the technology businesses and dynamics will actually make a lot of money for them. So this is what I see, and there will be such influencers, right? So that's on the positive side. On the negative side, I think there should be light touch regulation that should be coming in, right? Because what Anushka mentioned, right? Her biggest fear is she's taking care about it. She's keeping her standards high, but somebody doing shit job, and therefore there is a regulation that comes in which actually is very, very adverse for the industry. We all fear that, right? So we want a light touch regulation without something drastic happening. And I think, and because even people, there are going to be some people who will misuse loophole and etc, right? You will still get some calls from Indore saying ye tip deta hu, wo tip deta hu, right? And it could be considered influencers also. So if, and there will be, so some elements will try to abuse it very badly, and if the regulation comes post that, it is not going to be, it will hamper innovation, it will be not be industry friendly, and I fear that, right? So while most of the big influencers are doing really, they are taking care of their brand, making sure that they stick to their own standards, and which are very high standards, right? But I think there should be some regulation in place is what I think. like later it becomes worse. It is going to be is what I fear.
Something that's happening with crypto right now.
Yeah.
So like that, this was an insightful session. I think the key takeaways which I can take and which the audience would have also noticed is that one thing is for sure that brands and influencers need to work more closely. They need to understand each other's strengths and probably play by that. I think each one of you has mentioned it in some sense or the other that there is a need of guidelines to for the concept of phenomena to mature and to bring out its best. And I think one last thing from Ajinkya, which even Ayush had mentioned at some point, that like brands should look at creators and finance creators as not just distribution channels, but something beyond that, because there's a lot of expertise that they can bring onto the table, which might not be seen otherwise. So thanks a lot, guys, for sparing our time for this session. I think there's a lot more to get from you all, but probably we could do that in other formats, and maybe we could do this again 6 to 8 months down the lane. Thanks a lot for sparing our time this evening. Over to Saloni.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks
Thank
a lot
you.
for having us.
Appreciate it. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you, viewers, for staying tuned in throughout the session. We hope that you guys have had as much fun as we did. And on this note, we would like to wrap up the first edition of Marketing Camp. Please do reach out to us with any suggestions, opinions, or even demands that you might have for our upcoming editions. And we look forward to hearing from you all. Thank you again.